So we have a new video up for people who are supporters of the Thom Hartmann Program. Specifically, it's over at thomhartmann.com, talking about language, how we use language. Language matters tremendously. And we have chosen as a society, as a culture, as media, as political leadership, et cetera, not to refer to people like Steve Mnuchin, who threw thousands of people out of their homes illegally during the banking crisis, as looters. Not to refer to Rex Tillerson, whose oil company has ravaged much of the third world, literally destroying people's lives, killing people, poisoning people. We don't refer to them as looters. We don't refer to the police who go into neighborhoods and kill people, minorities, particularly African Americans. We don't refer to them as looters, stealing their lives. But when black people rise up and say, no, enough, we call them looters. There's something wrong with this. Check it out. It's at thomhartmann.com.
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Health Justice Now, Single Payer and What Comes Next by Timothy Faust. And this is from the introduction. A secret scream rings through America. It rings down the sterile fluorescent hallways of our hospitals. It rings over our rural towns and our native reservations. It rings through our prisons, the bellies of our great cities. It rings in our farms, in our fields, our streets, and our sewers, our bodies, and our blood. And we are cursed to never hear it clearly until, at last, we realize it has been our own mouth screaming, and we are lost. A child born today inherits, in that secret, a new American squalor, the skeletal remains of the American cities, the bleached bones of the American suburbs. This secret is a birthright of continual exploitation, pumped for labor and drained of cash and then punished for the resulting suffering. Punished for being hungry, punished for being sick, punished for being pregnant, punished for being poor, punished for being black or brown, punished for being queer, for being unlucky, for being. At the base of that suffering is lodged a little truth, like a knot in the stomach. In America, sickness makes you poor, and poorness makes you sick. This is a book about that relationship and why it happens, and why it's unnecessary, and what we can do to fix it. The cosmic whirling of God's great slot machine has not determined that some people are fated to suffer while others flourish. We have the resources to take care of everyone, and yet we refuse to do so. Your medical debt and medical bills are unnecessary, but we have chosen to make them necessary. These are structural problems with structural causes, and many of them share roots in how we pay for health care. This is a book about health care and health finance. They are different. Health care is anything that helps you stay safe and healthy. It's a kind of freedom from and within your own body. Health finance is the method by which we as a country pay for that freedom and by which we decide who gets to have it and who doesn't. Healthcare is more than what happens to you in the hospital. Healthcare is whether your home makes you sick, or your food makes you sick, or your environment makes you sick, or whether you have enough money to afford the things that keep you healthy. In America, the structure of corporate healthcare has convinced us that some people deserve health care and some people don't. This is a book about that corporate health finance, about private insurance and private insurers. For half a century, they've convinced us that they're the only things that keep us or could ever keep us from the utter financial ruination of illness. They've sold us different inadequate insurance plans and persuaded us that this is a form of great liberty, while chipping away at our freedoms for profit and holding our bodies and our children's bodies hostage. This is a book about single-payer health care, a health finance model in which we pool our abundant collective resources to provide health care to all people. It is a common model across the world. As we will discuss in this book, we have the potential not just to enact a single-payer program in America, but to build the greatest health care program among any so-called developed democracy. Here is my profession of faith. I believe beyond any doubt that single payer is demonstrably sound and imminently feasible. I believe a properly ambitious and well-structured single-payer program will do more than any other American social program of this generation to soothe the burns, to resuscitate the spirit, to nourish the moral will of the American people. I believe it will loosen the loathsome manacles of American health finance, an exploitative institution that profits by plundering from us our own bodily autonomy, and that anchors a larger exploitation that holds those whom we love as captive leverage to guarantee our servitude to abusive employers or domestic partners, to those who seek to dominate us both in the office and in the hospital. I believe this nation owes its people, whose labor has created its rich banquet, the safety and agency of health care. I believe this health care is greater in scope than that which happens upon an operating table. I believe that housing, food, income, and more, the components of basic human dignity, are health care. And I believe our work is that of striving toward justice for all people. And I therefore believe, I have to believe, that single-payer health care is our moral imperative. Single-payer is our tool. Single-payer is our weapon. Single-payer is our first step. But single-payer on its own is not the goal. This book is about health justice. Healthcare is personal, so I want to start this book personally by introducing two friends of mine, Steve Way and Kyle Kolick. They're two guys about my age, I'm 30, who live in North New Jersey. They're sweet, gentle people and probably the most charismatic pair of friends I've met in my entire life. They make me laugh until my face hurts, and we like watching pro wrestling together. They're also being utterly broken by our American healthcare system, and it's keeping them from living their lives. Steve has muscular dystrophy. The muscle and tissues that hold his body together are eating themselves. He's doing pretty good, all things considered. He beat his original life expectancy of 18 and now probably has a long life ahead of him. Steve needs a wheelchair to move and a ventilator to help him breathe. The book, Health Justice Now, Alexander.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Tuesday. We've got a lot on our agenda. We're going to be talking a little later in the program about the crime of weaponizing a virus for political purposes. Carolyn Henderson is going to be here about Trump's anti-environment agenda and how that turns out actually to be as well a racist agenda. Right now, however, Dr. Cedric Alexander is with us, a former law enforcement professional. He's the former president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, NOBLE, was on President Barack Obama's task force on 21st century policing. He holds a doctorate in clinical psychology. He's an author of numerous books, his most recent, In Defense of Public Service, and his previous book, The New Guardians, Policing in America's Communities for the 21st Century. His website, clalexandergroup.com. Do I have that right, Dr. Alexander?
The Twitter page is CALEX, CALEX _law. And of of course, my Facebook. My Facebook page to my company, of course, is Cedric AlexanderGroup.com.
Right.
Something like that. I don't remember. How you doing, sir?
Close enough. I'm well. So, I'm reading how Camden has been overhyped in terms of reforming police. I don't know about Compton. We're hearing conversations about basically rebooting not just police departments and not just policies. Trump is signing an executive order today to create a national database. It seems like it's a nice little start, but really fundamentally re-examining the whole idea behind policing in the United States. That our policing in this country came out of a very different place than, for example, Canada or most of Europe. Tell me about this. How do we reinvent policing in the United States? You've seen this from every side.
Well, every institution, and whether it's policing, law, medicine, industry, whatever institution it is, over time they all have to go through a phase of change. And I think what we're coming up on right now in American people across the board, not just in any one particular community, but I truly believe, Tom, across the board, communities are asking for something very different in their public safety officials. And I think out of the police reform that we're going to hear the president talk about today, in which we're going to further hear the House on both sides talk about, in many ways, I'm in hopes is going to advance policing and also engender some new trust that many parts of our communities have lost in policing over a number of years. So it is a challenging time in this country we live in, on top of COVID and of course a decline in our economy and loss of lives due to COVID. But I am certain and I am positive as Americans we're going to get through all this together. But as it relates to police reform, every institution goes through its phase of reform. And I think we're in a very good place now to implement some new policies, some new ideas, some new ways of doing business that is going to be more in line with the new generations of people that are out there among us. Look, I'm a baby boomer, and I may see the world very different than Generation Y or millennials or so forth. But we all have to coexist on this planet, in this country together. But I think reform right now, and I tell you, someone who's been a chief twice in this country, it certainly is not going to help us to get better. It's going to mean a change and difference, and sometimes change is hard, but in the end, I think it's going to benefit the nation at large.
What are the specific steps that, in your opinion, in your experience, both as a clinical psychologist, as a police officer and police chief, as the former president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, what specific things do we need to do at a federal level, at state levels, and in terms of reforming, rebooting, reorganizing local police departments? Where do we start?
I think one thing is going to have to happen. The country is going to have to regain its trust in public safety and law enforcement. There are many parts of the community that absolutely still maintain that trust, but we have to make every effort to make sure that every part of our American culture and a variety of different people that live within this American culture have an opportunity to feel and be part of their public safety. And for me, it begins at the beginning. I think we have to begin to ask the question, who are we hiring? Not just in terms of what their driving record or criminal history may be, but take a look at them internally. Who are they as a person? Do they have a sense of humanity? Do they have a moral compass? Do they respect life? And certainly none of us saw that demonstrated back on May 25th in Minneapolis. There was just a total absence of any type of morality or any type of compassion. So we want to make sure that the men and women that come into the profession, they have that sense of understanding that you're coming in as a guardian and not as a warrior. You're trained to fight if you need to fight, but we all also must have a sense of compassion towards people in a way that allow us to carry out our duties constitutionally and treat everyone the same. And then when you go beyond the recruitment, now we got to make sure, how are we training? Are we training our people in a way in which is going to give them the opportunity to go out and keep themselves safe and keep the public safe the very best that they can? So we need to look at a lot of our training. And then we got to make sure we got to have good supervision in our police departments, in our public safety. Good supervision who keeps an eye out on their personnel to make sure that they're carrying out their job constitutionally and looking for signs of stress that may be getting in their way so we can intervene and get police officers the help that they need. So those are just some of the basic fundamental things that I think more than anything else that we have to be able to move towards.
Yeah, forgive the interruption. We have about 2 minutes, so we're going to hit a hard break here. I'm curious your thoughts on the role of police unions in all this. They seem to be the kind of power behind the throne, at least with regard to police violence and police corruption.
Well, here's the thing. You have unions. You have unions in a lot of different industries, and you have police unions. Police unions were not organized to represent the community. They were organized to represent their constituencies, police officers. And some people would say that sometimes they go too far in trying to protect officers that are just bad officers. And there are other officers that will tell you that. But at the end of the day, whatever has been negotiated at that table with those unions, unions have not done that on their own. They've done that in concert with management, with elected officials, with chiefs.
But Dr. Alexander, forgive the interruption. We're going to hit a break here. I'm a member of a union, SAG-AFTRA. It's an actors union. Our union did not defend Harvey Weinstein and say, oh, yeah, he may be a rapist, but he's one of us. I mean, isn't there a point where you say, we're a union, but we're not?
And that's what the public is saying. The public is saying, at what point are you going to stop defending bad cops? That's the question that's being asked. But unions represent police officers, the good ones, just as well as those that may go out of bounds. Now, how far they choose to defend them is up to them. But perception from the public is that they're not working in concert with their city, with their chiefs, to try to make sure that the best officers stay on that department. There are too many cases that have been reported of bad officers that city government just can't get out of those departments.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. Dr. Cedric Alexander, he is the author of, most recently, In Defense of Public Service, his previous book, The New Guardians, Policing in America's Communities for the 21st Century. Dr. Alexander, thanks so much for dropping by today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 15 minutes past the hour. How do you think we can reinvent policing in America? Where do we begin? Looks like a big job, maybe? And welcome back. David in Seattle. Hey, David, what's on your mind?
Oh, hi. I love your show, and I've been listening very intently to all the discussion about racism and police brutality. And then the one thing I've wanted to say for a long time now is that we're not having a discussion about the science behind the people of color or the people of no color like us. That we are all Africans. We have to all remember we are all Africans from the start. And our ancestors migrated out of Africa some 60,000 or more years ago, of course, to northern climates, and they lost the melanin in our skin.
David, what does that have to do with anything?
It means that we can restructure about how we look at each other. We need to bring some science into this too.
Well, I'm not sure we need science beyond the fact that basically we're all human beings here. It's in fact, science brought us a lot of this crap. I mean, the so-called scientific racism science of the 19th century. Well, in the late 18th century too, but it really hit its peak at the end of the 19th century, around the time of separate but equal, Plessy versus Ferguson, that there were all these books being published that purported to describe, describe the difference between African Americans or between people of African and European ancestry. Frederick Hoffman is the author of a whole bunch of them. He worked for the Prudential Life Insurance Company. And he published a book and numerous articles back in the late 1800s and early 20th century describing, talking about how blacks eventually were going to die out because they were an inferior race. I mean, this was the science of the day. It was embraced by Woodrow Wilson, the friggin' president of the United States, in 1920 when he embraced eugenics, which included racial eugenics. I mean, we got to be very careful about how we use science, David. Why can't we just fundamentally say we are all people here? Period. Full stop. We don't need to go into explanations about when people this or that or the other thing.
Well, that's exactly my point, and I'm totally with you, and I'm not saying anything contradictory to what you're saying. What I'm saying is that I'm just reflecting again and again how important a good physical anthropology course can enlighten people. I mean, it didn't just enlighten me. It made things more clear about, what our origins are. And if we don't pay attention to, how basically to strip away all that, we're exactly the same. So, yes, I'm in complete agreement with you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, because I have actually, and I'm working on this book on healthcare, and it turns out in the research that I've been doing over the last few months that basically every effort to stop Americans from having a national healthcare system that has been undertaken in this country since the late 1800s was blocked by white racists who were afraid that black people would get free healthcare. It was the Southern racists. They were Democrats at the time. They called themselves conservatives, the Dixiecrats, who blocked Harry Truman in the late 1940s from a national health care program. It was the Southern racists who put the 20% hole in Medicare and Medicaid, or Medicare specifically, in 1967 with Lyndon Johnson. It just goes on and on and on. And they're using this kind of pseudo-racial science and all this BS about who was where, when, and therefore is more evolved and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think we just need to get to basics here. We're all people. We'll be right back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. In our latest video for folks who support our show over at thomhartmann.com, it's pretty mind-boggling, actually. The candidate Trump back in 2016 said, I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, and $26 billion in cuts to Social Security. And now he is block granting Medicaid to the states, which is already cutting back on Medicaid programs in the red states. You can check it all out over at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Donald Trump is signing an executive order of sorts today. The essence of it basically is he's asking Congress to do something. I mean, as CNN reports, the order mainly leans on lawmakers, the heavy lifting. So Trump will get credit for saying, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that, when in fact his executive order is saying, hey, Congress, would you please do this? Would you please do that? And we're going to do this little small thing here over in the Department of Justice that we can handle. It's the triumph of style over substance. And, I think it's frankly obscene. Last night on MSNBC, on Rachel Maddow's show, she had her producer, Steve Bannon, on. We've got to get Steve on this program. He's got a new book out. And the allegation, essentially, I think it's called Imposters. And basically what he's saying in this book is that for at least the last decade, and not having read the book, I'm just going off his interview last night, for at least the last decade, I would say since the 1980s, and I'll get to that in just a second, the Republican Party has ceased to be a party of principles. There are no political principles there. And therefore has become entirely transactional. It's all about what do we do today that will help advance our own wealth and power. We're now, by the way, hearing that 4 members of Congress have gotten millions of dollars out of that $500 billion that Steve Mnuchin is passing out and refusing to tell anybody who it went to. But we don't know beyond this. There's 4 who have been outed. One of the 4 gave the money back. That was a Democrat. Or actually the husband of a Democrat, of a woman who's a Democratic member of Congress. But the 2 Republicans, hey, bring the cash. Oh yeah, because the party has no core. Similarly, Donald Trump has no core. What are Donald Trump's principles? Well, outside of being a white nationalist or a white supremacist, a racist, I don't think Donald Trump has any core principles. It's, you can sum him up with, racism and me. It's all, anything that's going to help him and his kids, cool. Anything else? Not so much. And when I say and his kids, I'm not sure it even means and his kids. I mean, look at what he did to his daughter Tiffany. Cutting her mom, out essentially from most of the Trump wealth. Marla Maples. But, Louise, my wife Louise, who's been my partner in business here in the nearly 50 years we've been married, every company we've started, Louise has gone out of her way to construct essentially a mission statement for the company. I mean, this is something that we do as we're putting together the idea for a company. Because she's very clear about it and has said this over and over for years. If you don't have a vision, you either work for vision or you work for money. You either work for something, you either work towards something or you work to pay the bills. And there's nothing wrong with working to pay the bills. Probably 80% of Americans who have a job are working to pay the bills. And there's that lucky 20% of Americans, and maybe it's not even that many, who have a job where they're actually proud of their job. They feel like their job is accomplishing something positive in the world. It's got, they may have some disagreements with how things get done, but broadly speaking, we're producing a net positive for the earth, for the world, for humanity. There's a small percentage of people, who in their jobs feel that way. And that's a great thing. That's, a wonderful thing. But for somebody in public service, somebody who has been elected to serve and lead the people, to not have a vision statement, to not be a person who is working toward a specific goal, a more just society, a world that works for all, the survival of life on earth, to not have some sense of mission is to betray this country. And that's what the Republican Party and Donald Trump have been doing for a long, long time. And I said, earlier, ever since the 1980s, I think that when the Reagan Revolution started, the first few years of the Reagan presidency, you had these conservatives who for a decade, 2 decades, really 3, I guess, since the 1950s, 1957, Montpelier and Society and Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek, and then, throughout the late 50s and early 60s, Milton Friedman, they had these ideas that if you just got rid of government and let the marketplace regulate everything, the magical invisible hand would solve all our problems. There were a lot of these guys who actually believed this. Barry Goldwater actually believed this. Reagan comes into office and they actually put some of these practices into effect and discover that they don't work. They make things worse. They exacerbate problems. And I believe that was the point at which the Republican Party lost its soul, and Republican politicians, ever since the 1980s, have just been out for money and power, whatever they can smash and grab. When do you think it started?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Do you think I'm right that the Republican Party actually once had principles, bizarre as they were, and no longer does? Or do they have something I'm missing here?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, it's Tuesday for the Free Speech TV fundraiser, and I want to introduce you to Blue. Hey, Blue. This is my dog, Blue, and Louise's dog, Blue. Blue has one brown eye and one blue eye, and thus Blue. And he's a miniature border collie, or no, Australian Shepherd, I guess. And, oh yeah, what a good dog. And Blue would like you to contribute to Free Speech TV today. Can you say, please? Please, Blue, help out? Okay, you can go back to the, there you go. So, 87, oh, now Blue wants some attention. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. And, you know, if you'd like to say hello to Blue or send your regards, give Free Speech TV a call right now. Free Speech TV, this is the last week of the fund drive. It really is important. We really are behind. We have not hit our goals. We barely made our goals actually last week on the days when we had matches, and we've gotten nowhere close to that the rest of the time. So I'm desperate here. I'm showing animals on TV. It's like, please help out Free Speech TV. Desperate is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. This is serious stuff. We need to keep this network going. We need to keep this network on the air, and you are the glue that holds it together. You are what helps Free Speech TV be Free Speech TV. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV has some premiums for you with a $20 gift. You have your choice between the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With or there's a brand new all-inclusive LGBTQ plus pride sticker, which is, for today, a really great, today is the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing, actually yesterday was the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing gay and trans rights. And basically the whole spectrum of rights there encompassed by LGBTQ plus, excuse me. And what a marvelous day! What a great thing! What a great thing for all of us. And as society becomes richer and has more texture and it's just a good thing. With a $50 gift, there's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and there is the Free Speech TV webcam cover with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, there's the Free Speech TV face masks, 2 of them. With a $120 gift, there's a whole bunch of options with a $120 gift. The social distancing kit, where you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks and the hand sanitizer. The Just Effing Vote t-shirt. These are all $120 gifts. The Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, if you want to become a real evangelist. The Hidden History of the War on Voting, my book, the current one that's out right now, autographed by the author. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which is my next book, which won't be out for another month or 2. But when it does come out, you'll be one of the very first to get it with an autographed by the author copy. The Hidden History of Monopolies and, how big business destroyed the American dream, I believe is the subtitle. And then there are 4 books on race that, given this moment in time, well, not just this moment. I mean, obviously it's in the front of the news, but this period, this larger period, my lifetime, your lifetime that we're living through, where we have seen so much positive motion, and yet at the same time things are so terrible. They're still so terrible. These books are really, really, any one of these with a $120 gift. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Dear White America by Tim Wise, and Uprooting Racism by Paul Kibble. With a $240 gift, there's the Free Speech TV meet and greet. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University box, all kinds of goodies. And with the $1,000 gift, come to Portland. But the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need your help right now. We need your help in a big and serious way. So please call now, 877-378-8669. So please, I mean, this is, of all the causes out there, and there's some great ones, this one encompasses so many of them, whether it's racial equality or gender identity equality, or whether it's, the environment, political realities, voting. I mean, pick your issue. Free Speech TV is all over it. And to a large extent, hopefully at this program, we are too. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And Blue thanks you, and I thank you. So please call now, right? Help Free Speech TV be successful. Help Free Speech TV stay on the air. Help this program, continue doing the work that we're doing. We all need your help, and we need it right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call now. Coming up on the Science Revolution, biodiversity is dying as Trump opens 5,000 square miles of the ocean to the free market. Dr. Lauren Waller joins us to discuss how and why native plants can sequester carbon better and longer. Plus, Jim Adams from the Alaska National Parks Conservation Association is here on why Trump is allowing hunters to kill bear cubs in their dens. Are big game hunters like Don Jr. gleefully heading to Alaska to kill baby animals again? And cultural economist Dr. Jacobo Williams talks about how studies show black deaths at the hands of law enforcement are linked to historical lynchings. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever you find great podcasts. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. A great photo of a protester over on Democratic Underground. I'm guessing it's all over the place. It probably popped up first on Facebook, but in any case, it's a picture of a white woman holding a sign, and her sign says, "If I hid black Americans in my uterus, would their lives finally matter?" Think about that for a second. And then this headline over at nakedcapitalism.com, Eve Smith writing, the headline, 40% of police families experience domestic violence compared to 10% of the general population. What does that tell you about the kind of people who are becoming police, or about what the job of policing does to people over time because of the way we've established our institutions of policing? Or both? And I'm pretty sure it's both, but in any case. Nicholas, down in San Cristobal, Mexico. Hey, Nicholas, what's on your mind today?
Thomas, how are you today?
I am well.
Other than horrified by everything going on, as we all are. I just want to start off by saying, you know where I live, way down south here in Mexico, almost falling into Guatemala, way up in the mountains. Everybody's watching the news down here. And everybody is as horrified as the rest of us are. Everyone's asking me, what in God's name has happened to the country up there? And I don't have any good answers for it any more than any of us do. I read
so
how,
by the way, how is Mexico dealing with the COVID crisis?
It's very hard to know. So far, Chiapas, the southernmost state in which I live, has escaped most of the problem. Partly because it's so remote, I suspect that's the reason. The overall death rate has not gone up alarmingly in any way. I think they have counted in the entire state fewer than 100 cases. Although, happily, everybody's wearing masks, pretty much everybody, and everybody's taking it very seriously, and so that's all good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for the report. You were calling about policing, though.
Yeah, you're wondering about reform in general. I've been reading a lot about it, as have you, as we all have been. And I am very doubtful that any real and adequate reform can be made from within police departments themselves. I think this is all going to have to be from outside. We need civilian oversight to a massive degree. I think if we're to have any hope for, reform that is adequate enough to really begin to safeguard the lives of black Americans, the whole thing seems to be so out of control. And you just, a second before you picked the phone up to me, listed a number of things that are wrong, things that happen to people who go into policemen while they are policing, the psychological damage that can occur to them, harboring their fellow policemen, knowing that they are guilty because of that blue line, the whole thing. It goes on and on. I just think that if it's not civilian oversight, we're not going to get the kind of reform that we want. And so I would like to see the police out of the reform process altogether. I don't know how that would be done, as powerful as the police unions are, but I'm hopeful. There was a great article, you probably saw it in I think Saturday's New York Times, by a young black woman named Tiffany Drayton, the title of which stopped me in my tracks alone. It was, "I'm a Black American, I had to get out." And she removed herself in a young... Did you read that? I found that
she left the country.
As simply as it was written, I found it to be so powerful. And a quick question and a one-sentence summation. Did you see the video that went viral of a young black activist named Kimberly Latrice Jones? I think from Atlanta, maybe. It's about 6 or 8 minutes long. This would remind you, if you saw it, her final sentence after 6 or 8 minutes, in which, by the way, she included an explanation that I found to be quite credible, that involved looting even, and why it happens, and how it happens, and what's behind it. Is it simple greed? No. She goes into the desperation of the people doing it. She said something about it's easier to crawl through a broken glass window than to crawl through the oppression in America. Her final sentence was, and this absolutely nailed me, she said, they're lucky, she's talking about white people primarily, they're lucky that what black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
Yeah, I get that. And in fact, that was the sales pitch for maintaining slavery back in the around the time of the founding or of the writing of the Constitution. You had people like Patrick Henry saying, "Yeah, we all agree slavery is a terrible thing, but look out, you don't want to have a slaughter of white people." And then maintaining apartheid. That was the sales pitch after the failure of Reconstruction. That was part of the rationale of the Supreme Court in 1898.
1898.
Plessy.
Yeah. And as you pointed out before, the slave patrols became the modern police forces.
Yeah. This is.
And when you start there, where in God's name do people expect it to end?
Yeah, of course. Nicholas, I got to move along, but thank you. Thanks for the call. Thanks for helping moderate our YouTube channel.
Always
too.
for
It's
all
nice to
that
hear
you
from
do.
you. My pleasure. Great talking with you. Linwood in Goochland, Virginia. Hey, Linwood, what's up?
Thank you for taking my call. Before I go into my statement, I want to make a quotation by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He said this in 1971. "If you do not understand white supremacy racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you." And this gentleman is the author of a book called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, we want to talk about the difference between what is a police officer and what is a race soldier. The definition of a police officer for your audience is this as simple. Any person who speaks and acts to promote justice and correctness among all people at all times, in all places, in all areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. We currently do not have that thing. We currently have what is called race soldiers. These persons are white people who use law in such a manner as to aggressively and defensively establish, maintain, expand, and or refine the practice of white supremacy. These persons are not police officers. What you're seeing currently are white people who are race soldiers. This entire discussion about the looting and all this other nonsense about reform by the racial exhibit that you had on your call list earlier, scratch all that. There doesn't need to be reform. The reform that needs to be replaced is white people replacing the system that they created, and that is white supremacy. You, Mr. Hartman, are the problem. Anybody that's a white liberal, white conservative, anybody that's a white person, whether directly or indirectly, that has contributed to the problems of what's happening today, need to actually not talk to non-white people, need to talk to themselves. I mean, it's great that you guys want to get out there and, protest, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. No, we don't need to have that. That's just tacky behavior. White people need to solve this problem. We don't need to be holding your hands like you're little kids. We're grown people. Solve this problem.
Got it. I can't disagree with anything you said, Linwood. And I, speaking to a majority white audience on this show, I hope that I'm having some positive impact in that direction. Thank you, Linwood. Jared in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jared, what's up?
Hello, Tom. Nice to talk to you again. For the police discussion, I think we're getting a little bit off track. I hear a lot of people talking about, how bad the police are, and they are bad, but they're not giving any solutions. And I think people need to realize that the police are there primarily to protect property rights. And the sooner we eventually realize that, the sooner we can get people educated and realize that we need to just simply abolish the police. The police state we currently have is not working for us. It is working for the bourgeoisie. Whenever there's rioting, they always go out and they don't protect the people, they protect the property rights. And the sooner we have a unity of white and black unite and not this agreement politics, we can finally change this country for the better.
Yeah, well, changing this country for the better seems like a fine thing. Again, we have an entire political party, the Republican Party, and a fair number of Democrats who seem to be more committed basically to getting rich, to exploiting whatever situation they can to enhance their own power rather than fixing things.
To Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Because in the case of the Republican Party, they have no guiding principles. In the case of those Democrats who have basically abandoned us, they're thrown in with the Republicans. We'll be back. And welcome back. Robbie in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Robbie, thanks for listening to X-Ray FM. What's up?
Yeah, well, first, I just wanted to remind you, a lot of those Democrats, one of those Democrats is Joe Biden, by the way, who isn't really on there, the author of the Patriot Act. And anyway, I don't need to go into that. But I wanted to tell you, you're asking about the Republican thing. I have this great joke. You're going to love this. It's called the Republican Trilemma. If you write the words Republican, honest, and truth, honest and truth, or wait, whatever. Anyway, I'll forget. I'll tweet that to you later. But I wanted to bring up. I'm glad that the talk has turned into being anti-reform. This is what we talked about a while ago. You hung up on me, said that that you're for the same thing. I'm glad we're talking about it right now. I'm glad the police chief that was on this morning said that he's against reform. With the last caller, or not the last caller, but 2 callers ago, he said, this isn't the black person's problem. This isn't, black people aren't going to fix this. This is a white person's problem. They made this. And so what I wanted to bring up was killology. Have you heard of killology?
I have not, unless you're talking about Quentin Tarantino's movies.
No. Killology is essentially what all police officers are being trained on. It's this guy, he's like a lieutenant in some police force. He created Killology, which trains police officers to literally become the brutal, cold-blooded killers that we all see. And what his Killology is doing is it's providing the sound mind so they can act and kill some innocent person and feel okay with it. Now, this guy has trained multiple police throughout.
That's essentially how the military is trained, Robbie. I mean, you know, that's part of. I said that's how you train the military. That's part of basic training. Basically, is teaching people how to kill, how to the old cliche / joke that the purpose of the military is to blow things up and kill people. And people just don't have they're not born into this world with an instinct to kill other people. They have to be trained to do it. We do that in the military. You're suggesting that we do that in the police departments as well.
People?
No.
But do police officers have to kill people? So, I guess I'm bringing this up to more attention because part of the thing that was really cringeworthy was after I'd already called in the week, you had referenced our conversation to somebody else who was, because the police topic gets brought up. I hear your white listeners calling in all the time and being like, Republicans are going to use this, disband the police against us. And that's scary. What are we going to do without police? And it's like, that's coming from a place of privilege. When I was a kid, I had the talk that we weren't supposed to call the police, that we were supposed to call a parent, because they knew. I don't remember the kid's name when I was growing up, but he was a Mexican kid, had long, baggy pants. Police, I guess, he went to pick up his pants. They shot and killed him. And that's how I knew, about racism in the police force. But
no, I get it, Robbie, and I agree with your, which I may have disagreed with previously. On reflection, I agree with your premise that we need to really start this whole thing all over again. That our concept of policing, our fundamental concept of policing in this country, is corrupt and racist, and needs to be reinvented. I'm with you. It's a broken. It's not even a broken system. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, which was track down and punish runaway slaves. And here we are. Anyhow, we'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. Stick around. Hey, Thom Hartmann here. I have a new book out. It's called The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, and Ralph Nader wrote the foreword. It's available for pre-order wherever you find fine books. We have a special video up over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program, and it's about how a letter that the IRS sent out to 3.9 million Americans saved 700 lives. And you're like, wait a minute, the IRS saved 700 lives? How did that happen? Well, it has to do with Obamacare, and it's a fascinating story. And it turns out that this analysis of this IRS mailing was actually the first time that the federal government has done a study that actually proved that people having access to health care produces fewer deaths. For every 1,648 people who got the letter, there was one fewer premature death. I'll explain the whole thing in the video. It's as I said, it's available over at ThomHartmann.com for people who are regular supporters of our program, and it is really worth checking out. And it's a great ad, essentially, for a national health care system. Welcome back. Shelby in Tallahassee, Florida. Hey, Shelby, what's up?
Oh, it's a great summer day, Tom. Heart's been broken. This nation's been in mourning, and yet we just had a president of the United States who is a part of a web of deception that the Republican Party has weaved that now, it seems, is in full display, that they've doubled down. My commentary is to try to expand upon your talk with the black gentleman, the African-American police union, law enforcement, and to intersect that with also the racial disparities in the military justice system, but also to speak about, as you shared, it actually, my heart has been broken, Tom. We've been a nation of mourning. The old adage of the tangled web, as I shared, about when we practice to deceive. This is a pure deception today. It actually is outrageous in the sense of the evil, the dark heart that a president would have, an immoral, no character, integrity person would get up and try to, they're trying to cover themselves in some way, and they have this black gentleman, Tim Scott, who they claim as their black senator. The black people don't claim him. Tim Scott, if you look at the election results, was elected by a predominantly white South Carolina. The Clarence Thomas justice that replaced Thurgood. The black people don't claim him. I don't believe, and I have I have a lot of barrister friends, and I don't believe he's ever been invited to any black barrister or black law. Howard wouldn't have him. Texas, none of them. So I don't know how it is that they think that they can sell this deception to us. Today he comes out because he's polls are in the clunker. The country's heart was finally, it seems, moved to have humanity with that Floyd video and the historical disparity, the continual devaluation of our lives, not just black lives, but also poor white lives. We created the Appalachian electrical system to create opportunity to give clean air, clean water to a nation of people. And now we are here having to create some kind of slogans. And rather than to say that we have a humanity, a beloved community that needs to come together and reform a historical stain of, as you shared, a history of slave catching and police brutality tied to all of that. So you're right. The Republican Party has lost. They are a no pretense. They say that Mitch McConnell was here in this audience today. Now he's come out of his hole. For do what? They're not going to do anything on that bill. They're not going to do anything. It's just a pretense, and it's an evil pretense. Going to Tulsa on the anniversary of the Tulsa massacre, going over there to Jacksonville on the anniversary of that axe handle massacre. It's just outrageous.
Yeah, I agree with you, Shelby, and frankly, I think what's even more outrageous is that Trump is doing this for political gain, yes. and so are these white Republicans, and it's working with a certain sector of America. Now, thank God, it's not the more than 50% that it was back when Richard Nixon was doing this in '68 or when Ronald Reagan was doing it in '98. That majority has shrunk down to maybe 30-40% of the electorate, of the white racists out there who are still willing to salute the Republican flag, as it were. But it's a tragic commentary on the state of affairs here. Shelby, thank you. You said it so well. Michelle in Inglewood, California. Hey, Michelle, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. First time calling. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure, but maybe you are aware of the recent hangings. We've had two out here in California, one in Texas, one in New York, and they all say that they're suspiciously suicides, but they're not. As our voices of the protesters continue and our demands continue and they grow louder and louder, unfortunately, expect more of these kinds of incidences of killings, such as Rayshard Brooks over the weekend. That's just a fact. As we demand our voices to be heard and demand change, the resistance and the backlash is going to grow harder and harder, all at the behest of Trump and his bullhorn and his unofficial call to his unofficial racist brethren who are going to try to incite this quote-unquote race war. I urge all of our peaceful brothers and sisters to please keep protesting peacefully. Show the brutality and the animalistic nature of those racists. Just keep protesting peacefully, as in '64, as on the March on the Bridge. Please keep protesting peacefully. Lastly, the police reform issue, defunding, I don't know, perhaps, but mostly we need to repeal, replace, reinvent, and rebuild the whole ideal of law enforcement. The sample is J. Scott Thompson, Camden, New Jersey, turned it around totally. Look it up, read it. That's what we need to do.
We'll do it. Michelle, thank you. Thank you so much. And Michelle was just talking about these unofficial forces. This happened in New Mexico. A bunch of white guys calling themselves the New Mexico Civil Guard shot somebody who was trying to take down a statue. It continues. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
So we have a new video up for people who are supporters of the Thom Hartmann Program. Specifically, it's over at thomhartmann.com, talking about language, how we use language. Language matters tremendously. And we have chosen as a society, as a culture, as media, as political leadership, et cetera, not to refer to people like Steve Mnuchin, who threw thousands of people out of their homes illegally during the banking crisis, as looters. Not to refer to Rex Tillerson, whose oil company has ravaged much of the third world, literally destroying people's lives, killing people, poisoning people. We don't refer to them as looters. We don't refer to the police who go into neighborhoods and kill people, minorities, particularly African Americans. We don't refer to them as looters, stealing their lives. But when black people rise up and say, no, enough, we call them looters. There's something wrong with this. Check it out. It's at thomhartmann.com. Well, it's Tuesday for the Free Speech TV fundraiser, and I want to introduce you to Blue. Hey, Blue. This is my dog, Blue, and Louise's dog, Blue. Blue has one brown eye and one blue eye, and thus Blue. And he's a miniature border collie, or no, Australian Shepherd, I guess. And, oh, yeah, what a good dog. And Blue would like you to contribute to Free Speech TV today. Can you say, please? Please, Blue, help out? Okay, you can go back to the, there you go. So, 87, oh, now Blue wants some attention. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. And, you know, if you'd like to say hello to Blue or send your regards, give Free Speech TV a call right now. Free Speech TV, this is the last week of the fund drive. It really is important. We really are behind. We have not hit our goals. We barely made our goals actually last week on the days when we had matches, and we've gotten nowhere close to that the rest of the time. So I'm desperate here. I'm showing animals on TV. It's like, please help out Free Speech TV. Desperate is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. This is serious stuff. We need to keep this network going. We need to keep this network on the air, and you are the glue that holds it together. You are what helps Free Speech TV be Free Speech TV. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV has some premiums for you with a $20 gift. You have your choice between the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet with or there's a brand new all-inclusive LGBTQ plus pride sticker, which is, for today, a really great, today is the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing, actually yesterday was the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing gay and trans rights. And basically the whole spectrum of rights there encompassed by LGBTQ plus, excuse me. And what a marvelous day! What a great thing! What a great thing for all of us. And as society becomes richer and has more texture and it's just a good thing. With a $50 gift, there's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and there is the Free Speech TV webcam cover with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, there's the Free Speech TV face masks, 2 of them. With a $120 gift, there's a whole bunch of options with a $120 gift. The social distancing kit, where you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks and the hand sanitizer. The Just Effing Vote t-shirt. These are all $120 gifts. The Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, if you want to become a real evangelist. The Hidden History of the War on Voting, my book, the current one that's out right now, autographed by the author. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which is my next book, which won't be out for another month or 2. But when it does come out, you'll be one of the very first to get it with an autographed by the author copy. The Hidden History of Monopolies and, how big business destroyed the American dream, I believe is the subtitle. And then there are 4 books on race that, given this moment in time, well, not just this moment. I mean, obviously it's in the front of the news, but this period, this larger period, my lifetime, your lifetime that we're living through, where we have seen so much positive motion, and yet at the same time things are so terrible. They're still so terrible. These books are really, really, any one of these with a $120 gift. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Dear White America by Tim Wise, and Uprooting Racism by Paul Kibble. With a $240 gift, there's the Free Speech TV meet and greet with a $360 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University box, all kinds of goodies. And with the $1,000 gift, come to Portland. But the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need your help right now. We need your help in a big and serious way. So please call now, 877-378-8669. So please, I mean, this is, of all the causes out there, and there's some great ones, this one encompasses so many of them, whether it's racial equality or gender identity equality, or whether it's, the environment, political realities, voting. I mean, pick your issue. Free Speech TV is all over it. And to a large extent, hopefully at this program, we are too. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And Blue thanks you, and I thank you. So please call now, right? Help Free Speech TV be successful. Help Free Speech TV stay on the air. Help this program, continue doing the work that we're doing. We all need your help, and we need it right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call now.
Problem is, Americans can't depend on the past to predict what the future will be, that the future will be tickety-boo. Sure, some prejudice has subsided as successive waves of migrants have integrated. And she continues from there. The book, Don't Label Me, by Irshad Manji.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to our second hour. So I have a question for you. How should the crime of weaponizing a virus for political purposes be punished? How do we react to this? I mean, Trump's rally in Tulsa this weekend is moving the RNC down to Florida specifically so that they can pack an audience filled with people yelling, screaming, no masks, jammed in. What these things prove, these 2 events that Trump has had, these 2 decisions that he has made in the past week, is that he's willing to allow Americans to die. In fact, he's willing to take proactive actions that will cause Americans to die in order to get his ego stroked and increase his chances of getting reelected. Or at least he thinks that it's going to help his chances of getting reelected. Now, there's this new book out by Trump's niece, and pieces of this are starting to leak out right now, suggesting that his nephew his brother's child had cerebral palsy, very expensive medical treatments necessary for cerebral palsy. When Donald was negotiating with his brother and sister over slicing up his father's estate, he cut off the medical payments to his nephew with cerebral palsy in order to force that family to give Donald a larger chunk of daddy's inheritance. At least according to Donald's nephew or niece right now. So you've got two data points here. Number one, Trump is willing to kill people to get reelected or put people in situations where they're going to die. Number two, he was willing to threaten his own nephew with the possibility of death in order to get more money. And then number three, scientists report that if 80% of Americans simply wore masks, and by the way, this has been demonstrated in Japan, which did not shut down. They closed their schools, that was it. People still went to work. If 80% of the population wears masks, the transmission rate of this virus goes below 1, that R0 number. In other words, one person doesn't infect one other person. One person infects 0.8 of a person or 0.7 of a, 10 people only infect 7 people. And as a result, over time, the virus dies out and goes away. If 80% of Americans wore masks, we would be in a situation right now where the virus would be dying out and going away, as has happened in Japan over the last 5 months. If Trump had reacted to the coronavirus the same way that South Korea did in January, on January 20th, they got their first case the same day we got our first case. Or even if he had reacted like Australia did in February, or New Zealand, or most of Northern Europe, there would be at least 60 or 70,000 Americans who are dead who today would instead be alive. I mean, this is. I don't think Americans know this, right? I was talking yesterday about people in Australia and how, they're wearing masks when they go out. It was, I guess, an assumption on my part or old news. I got a note from one of our listeners in Australia. Tip of the hat, Katie, thank you very much for sending this. She says, just a quick note to update you on our COVID status here in Australia. You mentioned Monday that Australians don't go out without masks on. Well, thankfully, that is now old news. Western Australia, where we are, and the rest of the states, Western Australia is a state, by the way, sometimes referred to as WA. Western Australia, where we are, and the rest of the states, all of whom maintain similar reopening stages, stopped requiring masks about 2 months ago. My husband and I, who are being supremely cautious due to our age, would feel quite odd leaving the house with a mask on at this point. However, folks are still standing in line at shops at the 1.5 meter marks, 6 feet, which were used before, and every store has disinfectant at the entrance and the counter. She adds, Australia seems to be moving in the direction of New Zealand, which had its first rugby match this weekend, complete with stands filled with cheering, happy Kiwis. Why? Testing and contact tracing. They're crushing the virus. They don't even need masks anymore in Australia. They've reached that threshold. We are not even talking about that threshold. We've got a full-blown epidemic inside the United States going on, and now you've got scientists talking about this is going to become endemic, which means it's always here, it never goes away. At the same time that other countries are getting rid of this damn virus. And now on top of this, you've got Donald Trump and Eugene Scalia, our labor secretary, working together to cut off unemployment benefits to millions of America's most poorly paid but most at-risk workers in order to force them back to work. Trump doesn't care how bad the epidemic gets. He doesn't care how many people die, as long as the deaths happen in the weeks and months immediately after the election. And in that regard, I think he may have mistimed this, frankly. But every other country in the world that is not run by a strong man and has a functioning government is right now executing a specific plan to protect their citizens from this deadly virus. And the Trump and the Republicans are not only ignoring the need for a plan, they're actively working against the advice of their own scientists, putting politics and Donald Trump's ego above the lives of American citizens. And this is cruel. This is willful brutality. This policy that Donald Trump and Eugene Scalia are pushing. I think it's shocking. The rest of the world, as Nicholas calling in from Mexico just a little bit ago, the rest of the world is looking at us with horror. And yet the GOP, the Republican Party, seems to think, oh, it's just fine. No complaints, no criticism. Ron DeSantis couldn't figure out how to put a mask on. The governor of Florida, he put it on sideways. You know, the guy who's in charge of the coronavirus task force, Mike Pence, won't wear a mask. Some of these Republican strategists, at least one has come right out in public and said, well, you know, 70% of Republicans are willing to go out in public without a mask, and they're not afraid of the virus. That's only true of about 30% of Democrats. So let's hold our elections and force people to go to the polls. The Democrats won't show up. And apparently that idea has become like official Republican ideology, because you've got states like Texas and Florida who are saying, vote by mail? Hell no. We're not going to let our citizens vote by mail. So what we're watching right in front of our own eyes is weaponizing a virus for political purposes. And, you know, and let's not forget, another piece of this is the Republicans pointing out, and this all started on April 7th, right? The day that the Washington Post and the New York Times said black people are getting hit by this virus more than white people. And literally the next day, right across the board, you had the billionaire groups, you know, FreedomWorks and the other right-wing groups saying, time to open America. You had these white militia guys showing up in state capitals, time to open America. It's only black people dying. So, hey, I want my haircut. I want somebody to bring me my meal. This crime against humanity is being committed right in front of our eyes. And it's being committed against our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, and our family members. So what should be the punishment for weaponizing a coronavirus for political purposes? How do we deal with this? Is it just going to be sending Republicans to defeat in November? Or do you think this is going to work the way Richard Nixon weaponized race in 1968 and Reagan did in 1980?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
For that matter, how H.W. Bush weaponized race with his Willie Horton ads. It beat Michael Dukakis. Is it going to work again? And welcome back. Let's see here. Ken in Lafayette, Georgia. Hey, Ken, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Hi, Tom. It's Lafayette, Colorado.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said, Ken?
I'm in Lafayette, Colorado.
Oh, I'm sorry if I misspoke. Yeah, you're on the air. Go.
Yeah, quickly. So I was going to comment on law enforcement reform quickly. Mm-hmm. And that... Yeah, feel free. One group that, and I don't have an answer as to how that goes about, but one group that, if I understand correctly, that has been deemed an anti-government kind of hate group, if you will, by the SPLC, is the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And you've had the founder, Richard Mack, on your show.
I have.
And,
you're right.
And my point being is we need drastic reform within the police and law enforcement, but it's groups like this that the FBI, I guess, needs to keep an eye on these people because they are obviously, they're rogue and they pose a threat to society, to people of color, such as myself. Really, that's
I agree.
really all
I agree,
wanted to
Ken,
say.
and that's why you haven't seen Richard Mack on this show in a long time. We were debating with him back in the day, whether sheriffs were the ultimate power in America and some of their more bizarre notions. But as it became obvious how not just toxic, but actually destructive groups like that are, it's been, I think, probably a year, maybe 2 years since he's been on this program. But your point is well taken. And these militia groups, let me add, we've got in New Mexico, this is just an amazing story that protesters shot in New Mexico as the militia, this so-called New Mexico Civil Guard, a bunch of white guys with long rifles and semi-automatic weapons. Somebody called the police a half hour before this militia shot this protester. And we don't know anything about the protester other than the fact that he's in the hospital in critical condition. We don't know his name. We don't know his race. We don't know his age. We don't know, if he was, what he was doing and why he was there. But apparently, according to the people who were there on the scene, he was climbing the statue to deface it or to help try to take it down. And one of these guys shot at him. And this is just nuts. We've got the governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, a Democrat, saying, quote, "The heavily armed individuals who flaunted themselves at the protest, calling themselves a civil guard, were there for one reason, to menace protesters, to present an unsanctioned show of unregulated force. To menace the people in New Mexico with weaponry, with an implicit threat of violence, is on its face unacceptable. That violence did indeed occur, is unspeakable." So, Ken, I'm with you, and I think that, we're seeing now the full flower of the result of what, a year or two or three ago I was looking at. Frankly, I think probably a lot of white people were looking at as, isn't that a weird little fringe movement? No, this is a poison. This is a cancer in our society. Ken, I'm sorry, I was hoping to get thank you. I was hoping to get a comment from you, but I missed my time cue and we hit the break. We'll be right back. Coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. Stick around. Our 1 hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3 hour podcast available over at ThomHartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Hey, we have a new video up over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program. And it's about the state representative, Timothy Gintner in Ohio, who has proposed legislation. It actually passed the House of Representatives in Ohio, HB 164. It's now going to the Senate, where there are 33 senators, 9 of them Democrats. This legislation, if you were to ask a student, say you're a science teacher, and you were to ask a student the question like, does the sun rotate around the Earth? Is the Earth the center of the universe? And the student said yes, you would have to grade the answer as correct, because the student might belong to some cult that believes that the Earth is at the center of the universe. Seriously. Religion trumps science in the classroom. It is getting so weird out there. Anyhow, you can check out all the details of it in our little video over at ThomHartmann.com. And thanks again for supporting the program. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Anthony in Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Anthony, what's on your mind today?
Hello, sir. How you doing? I was just calling to say thank you for what you do. You're one of my shows that I listen to get my news. I would like to first say thank you for being humble the way you are. I think you take a lot on the chin from a lot of people and people that are black people like myself, and you're humble with it. Thank you for that. We need more white people like you. I'm a ex-military guy. I'm from the Army, and I'm also a police officer. Police reform most certainly need to be tackled in a very special way. They do need to take the warrior mindset out of all police academies, because they teach you a thought process of winning the fight is better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And a lot of times when they have these slideshows up and they're showing you victims. All of the victims are white. All of them are white. It's rare that you see a victim that is black. And then they mix in perpetrators that are black and white. However, when they talk about terrorist people, they minimize the maximum, maximize the minimum, meaning it's only been one that I know of, maybe two black terrorists. And they did this very lengthy discussion on terrorism, but then they only talked about John Muhammad. The majority of terrorists that has domestically happened in the United States have all been by white men and women. And when they said, does anyone have any questions, quite naturally, as a black man that I am, I raised my hand. I'm like, hey, you all have a lot of white victims up there. My skin bruised different than a white person's skin. You all need to change those slides. However, I have the ability, because I'm 100% disabled vet, to be able to say things like that and not worry about my actual paycheck. But it's a lot of police officers that I work with that are white guys. The only reason why they stand behind that so-called thin blue line is because either they're afraid that their actual paycheck is going to be tackled in some kind of way negatively because they may not get that overtime that they much needed, or their days off like they may need, all because they stand with me, or like you would stand with me, like a John Brown. So thank you for what you do, and police reform does need to be changed to a guardian, because I'm a guardian. That's what I do. I change lives by not only doing my job as a police officer, I educate. Every moment that I get a chance to educate instead of giving a ticket, I do that. Even when I was a corrections officer, I did the same thing. But that back you're on. All of that back you're on as a corrections officer. But thank you again for what you do. I listen to you, Joe Madison, and Wilbur Leon. You all have stuff that is researchable. Keep doing what you do. Stay humble like you are. And, yes, get more white people to stand up and be as smart and as intelligent as you. And hopefully more of the white community that's not afraid to lose their job, maybe they'll start standing up, because this is getting ridiculous. In 2020, I shouldn't still have to have that conversation with my son to where he may run into a police officer that I work with that may end up killing my son, and I'm a police officer. That's ridiculous. Thank you, Tom. Yeah. I appreciate it, Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. It's great to get a law enforcement perspective, and you know, God bless you. You're doing good work. Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate it. Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How you doing? Just to answer your question about police reform, the first thing is that we got to get after these police unions, because earlier you had a guest on that said that police unions are representing all police officers. I beg to differ, especially since here in New York City, where we have the PBA president, the police union president, Patrick Lynch, who has a long record of solely representing white police officers, as well as a lot of these other police unions. But he sure as hell wasn't around where 3 minority officers that stuck with their oaths to tell the truth, to do the right thing. He helped orchestrate their ousters because they didn't stick with the blue wall of silence. And this was during the time when Rudy Giuliani was mayor. So a lot of which is that these police unions are not representing police officers, but more likely representing police racism or white supremacy in law enforcement. And you have to...
Yeah, and you know, as I pointed out, I mean, you know, my dad was a member of the machinists union. I guarantee you, if somebody was being fired, you know, in his tool and die shop, because you know, they did something you know, violent or racist to a fellow worker, or to some, you know, some person who walked in off the street, you know, beat the crap out of them because of the color of their skin, the machinists union would not have defended that person. SAG-AFTRA, as I pointed out, you know, the actors union was not defending Harvey Weinstein. Unions are not here to defend people who break the law. Unions are not here to defend people who commit crimes against their communities or anybody else. Unions are here to defend the rights of workers, not of abusers. And Michael, thank you for the call. And we've got to recalibrate this with regard to police unions, or simply say, sorry, maybe this is a profession that shouldn't be unionized. Now, I disagree with that. I literally don't think there is a profession that should not be unionized. But these police unions, in many cases, are just running themselves like protection rackets, protecting the bad guys.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And now, actually, a few of them are coming out and saying, okay, we're ready for reform. Don't do away with us, please. That's a good step. We'll be back. Well, it's Tuesday for the Free Speech TV fundraiser, and I want to introduce you to Blue. Blue. This is my dog, Blue, and Louise's dog, Blue. Blue has one brown eye and one blue eye, and thus Blue. And he's a miniature border collie, Australian shepherd, I guess. And, what a good dog. And Blue would like you to contribute to Free Speech TV today. Can you say, please? Please, Blue, help out? Okay, you can go back to there you go. So, now Blue wants some attention. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. And, if you'd like to say hello to Blue or send your regards, give Free Speech TV a call right now. Free Speech TV, this is the last week of the fund drive. It really is important. We really are behind. We have not hit our goals. We barely made our goals actually last week on the days when we had matches, and we've gotten nowhere close to that the rest of the time. So I'm desperate here. I'm showing animals on TV. It's like, please help out Free Speech TV. Desperate is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. This is serious stuff. We need to keep this network going. We need to keep this network on the air, and you are the glue that holds it together. You are what helps Free Speech TV be Free Speech TV. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV has some premiums for you with a $20 gift. You have your choice between the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet with or there's a brand new all-inclusive LGBTQ plus pride sticker, which is, for today, a really great, today is the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing, actually yesterday was the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing gay and trans rights, and basically the whole spectrum of rights there encompassed by LGBTQ plus. Excuse me. And what a marvelous day! What a great thing! What a great thing for all of us. And as society becomes richer and has more texture and it's just a good thing. With a $50 gift. There's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and there is the Free Speech TV webcam cover with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, there's the Free Speech TV face masks, 2 of them. With a $120 gift, there's a whole bunch of options with a $120 gift. The social distancing kit, where you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks and the hand sanitizer. The Just Effing Vote t-shirt. These are all $120 gifts. The Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, if you want to become a real evangelist. The Hidden History of the War on Voting, my book, the current one that's out right now, autographed by the author. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which is my next book, which won't be out for another month or 2. But when it does come out, you'll be one of the very first to get it with an autographed by the author copy. The Hidden History of Monopolies and how big business destroyed the American dream, I believe is the subtitle. And then there are 4 books on race that, given this moment in time, well, not just this moment. I mean, obviously it's in the front of the news, but this period, this larger period, my lifetime, your lifetime that we're living through, where we have seen so much positive motion, and yet at the same time things are so terrible. They're still so terrible. These books are really, really, any one of these with a $120 gift. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Dear White America by Tim Wise, and Uprooting Racism by Paul Kibble. With a $240 gift, there's the Free Speech TV meet and greet with a $360 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University box, all kinds of goodies. And with the $1,000 gift, come to Portland. But the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need your help right now. We need your help in a big and serious way. So please call now, 877-378-8669. So please, I mean, this is, of all the causes out there, and there's some great ones, this one encompasses so many of them, whether it's racial equality or gender identity equality, or whether it's, the environment, political realities, voting. I mean, pick your issue. Free Speech TV is all over it. And to a large extent, hopefully at this program, we are too. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And Blue thanks you, and I thank you. So please call now, right? Help Free Speech TV be successful. Help Free Speech TV stay on the air. Help this program, continue doing the work that we're doing. We all need your help, and we need it right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call now. Coming up on the Science Revolution, biodiversity is dying as Trump opens 5,000 square miles of the ocean to the free market. Dr. Lauren Waller joins us to discuss how and why native plants can sequester carbon better and longer. Plus, Jim Adams from the Alaska National Parks Conservation Association is here on why Trump is allowing hunters to kill bear cubs in their dens. Are big game hunters like Don Jr. gleefully heading to Alaska to kill baby animals again? And cultural economist Dr. Jacobo Williams talks about how studies show black deaths at the hands of law enforcement are linked to historical lynchings. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever you find great podcasts. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at thomhartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at thomhartmann.com. I'll clean your phone. And before I pick up your calls, I just wanted to. This story just kind of flew by here. It's over on Raw Story. When I was a kid growing up in a suburban neighborhood in the south side of Lansing, Michigan, my friends and I, we used to routinely cut through the neighborhood, right? You go between houses to get from one street to the next street without going all the way around the block on the sidewalk. I'm assuming you've done that too? Well, apparently that's against the law in Clayton County, Georgia, where a group of 5 black kids, children, were cutting through the neighborhood, and the police came and held them at gunpoint. The people who live in the neighborhood came out of their houses, and they're yelling at the police, These are babies. Put your guns away. And the cops are like, well, you got to frisk them. You know, maybe they're going to try and break into houses. They're babies. 13 years old. When my son was 13, my daughters for that matter, when I was 13, we were kids. These are children. It's insane. And then in New Mexico, you've got this militia, the so-called militia. The statue of Juan de Onate, a Spanish conquistador who was most famous for the brutality with which he treated the Native Americans. They were tearing down his statue outside of the Albuquerque Museum in Old Town. And a bunch of white guys with semi-automatic weapons showed up. Somebody called the police and said, this is not a good thing. They call themselves the New Mexico Civil Guard. The white guys with guns are here, and they're pointing them at the protesters. And the police were like, yeah, okay. And then one of them shot one of the protesters. And that protester's now in the hospital in critical condition. And still the police didn't show up. It took the police a full half hour after they were called to show up on the scene. They showed up after this guy had been shot. It's kind of bizarre. On the one hand, I'm saying, oh, too much police violence. And on the other hand, I'm saying police aren't showing up. Oh, well, yeah, the police weren't showing up in time to protect black people from white guys with guns. Oh, gee, okay, now it all makes sense. Now it all becomes one story, right? The governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, a Democrat, not that that should matter, issued a statement about this today. She said, I assume it was today, maybe it was yesterday, but basically she said, the heavily armed individuals who flaunted themselves at the protest, calling themselves a, quote, civil guard, end quote, were there for one reason, to menace protesters and to present an unsanctioned show of unregulated force. She would continue, she said, to menace the people of New Mexico with weaponry, with the implicit threat of violence, is on its face unacceptable. And that the violence did indeed occur, that is unspeakable. Now, what do they have to say over on Fox, or what does the White House say about this, or the Republican members of the House and Senate? Antifa! Look out! Antifa's coming! Those protesters, they must have been Antifa. Oh my God, it's Antifa. They're coming to get us. First it was the caravans of Central Americans coming to the border. We had to declare a state of national emergency and send the army down to the border, militarize the border. Now it's Antifa. They're coming to take us away. Oh my God, the Antifa terrorists. I'm getting email. I am getting emails from FreedomWorks, from the right-wing, billionaire-controlled, the group that brought us the Tea Party, talking about Antifa terrorists. I'm getting emails from the president talking about Antifa terrorists. I'm getting emails from Republican members of Congress. Oh my God, the Antifa terrorists, we're holding the line. The Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, when asked about terrorism in the United States, doesn't answer well. There's the Klan. It's the oldest domestic terrorist organization in the United States. And it doesn't talk about the militias, doesn't talk about this protester who got shot, but instead talks about Antifa. Really? Who did Antifa kill? Again? Who? But, I mean, we can go back to Tim McVeigh, who killed several hundred Americans in Oklahoma City because he thought he was going to start a, quote, race war based on the Turner Diaries, this Bible of these right-wing white militias. It's amazing. It's, on the one hand, somewhat disheartening. On the other hand, the fact that we're having this conversation, I think, is actually a good thing. Gary in Minneapolis. Hey, Gary, what's on your mind today?
Hello, Tom. I spent 4 years in the Navy. I was a Vietnam veteran. I was one of the lucky ones that didn't have to get shot at or shoot at people. and I was a cook, and so I knew everybody on the ship. I was on 2 different ships. And these 2 different ships had totally different cultures. The first ship I was on, it was self-segregated. All the blacks ate together, all the Hispanics ate together, all the whites ate together at separate tables. The other ship I was on was totally integrated, and they all sat together, and it was a totally different thing. The reason for that is the first crew and command that goes on a newly commissioned ships sets the demeanor, the culture, the personality, whatever you want to call it, of that ship, and it never, ever changes. Because you got 3 guys that leave once a month and 3 new guys that come on to replace them, and they're just acclimated into that culture. And that is what's happened with our police departments.
Amen.
You can be one of the nicest guys in the world, and you go into that police department and you become acclimated into that culture. And the only way, and it'll never, ever, ever change, the only way that it can ever change is if you totally replace the whole personnel, the whole thing. Otherwise,
to basically break the memory of the tradition, as it were.
Yes. And the only way to do that is to totally replace, train new people ahead of time, and then replace everybody that's there. Otherwise, it'll never, ever change.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense, Gary. Makes absolutely perfect sense.
And I had I also had 3 friends that were pot smoking, LSD dropping hippies, very liberal, today call them progressives, and they all joined the fire department. And they went through their basic training, and then after that, they were assigned to their different duty stations, and within about 6 months, they all hated blacks, because they used the N-word, and they all hated gays, and they used another word for that, within a matter of months.
Yeah. Yeah, culture is contagious.
They acclimate into that culture. And in order to change the police culture, you have to totally replace the personnel in one fell swoop.
Don't you think there might be a threshold that's maybe some social scientist has figured out that instead of 100%, if you simply replace some smaller critical threshold, 20%, 30%, maybe 60 or 70%, it might do it, Gary? What do you think?
I don't know. I think you got to go at least to 80.
Yeah. It's got to be a shock to the cultural system. Gary, thank you. I mean, this is what we saw after World War II. The cultures of Germany and Japan changed in defeat. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Stick around. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Fair, only slightly unbalanced. I'm not hearing anything, Sean. Oh, we're back on the air. Okay, that's why I'm not hearing anything, because I'm on the air with you all. Okay, let's pick up some phone calls here. Mike in Cleveland, Georgia. Hey, Mike, thanks for watching us on YouTube. What's up?
Oh, bless you, youngin'. We got a sky blue, but ours is a blue dog instead of a red dog.
Okay.
Yeah, we got one with a blue eye, Australian miniature. But cool. I live right next to Helen here, and we sanction fascism. We think it's a big, funny ha-ha. Police is so bad in Helen, people won't even come no more because they get locked up walking back to their motels. What we've done is we've monetized our population. if a person's walking down the street without $1 in their pocket, they're not worth anything. You put them in the back of a patrol car, now they're worth $120 a day for every day they're laying in jail because they can't make bonds. So now you got poor people prisons. And then when the judge sentences them or does whatever they do to them, they hand it over to these private contractors, whether it's probation, parole, whether it's drug rehabilitation, whether it's driving schools. All these are shakedowns. But once they get handed from the court over to these people, well, then they don't follow the court rules. The judge says you can readjust your child support if your situation changes in 3 months. But the state people that have it is 3 years before you can redress it. So when it's all said and done, they really still are what you call slave catchers, because all they're doing is putting people in these prisons so that we, the taxpayers, can spend $15,000, $20,000 a year taking care of poor people that could be better served. If you pick somebody up for a DUI, put them in a cab and paid for a motel, it'll cost $40. You can back charge them tomorrow, and there's no problem. But there's no money in that. This is all about fascism. It's all about shaking down our population. It's taxes on poor people. Rich people pay their shit and walk away. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's okay, Mike. It's not okay. You can't talk like that on the air. Thank you for correcting yourself. I'm hoping that Sean hit the button so they got dumped. Anyhow, continue. Oh, Mike just dropped off, which is probably just as well. Let's see here. Joe in Schererville, Indiana. Hey, Joe, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, how you doing? I'm a 29-year-old history teacher, so that makes me a millennial. I had the good fortune of actually meeting you in Chicago, and I appreciate your kind words in regards to my profession this last spring. Being a history teacher and a millennial and a progressive, for that matter, I have to kind of ask, where do we draw the lines in regards to statue removal? Because while I certainly do support removing the Confederate statues and Columbus coming down as well, there are now a few calls that I've been seeing to kind of bring down Washington and even calls to bring down Jefferson at Missouri University. And that's a difficult thing for me to reconcile, because while I do understand Jefferson's complicated legacy, I'm a student of history. I read your book on Jefferson. I read Fawn Brody's book, and I think that his contributions are his shortcuts.
Joe, your voice is breaking up really badly. My personal take on where to draw the line is people who fought against the United States versus people who helped create the United States, as screwed up as those people were. But, everybody's going to draw their own lines. Thom Hartmann here. Did you know that the Second Amendment was written to protect the slave patrols in South Carolina and Georgia back in the day? It's in my new book, The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, available wherever you find great books. So back in 2016, the election year, Donald Trump was not yet president. He was just running a scam university, Trump University. That year, and Barack Obama was president, that year, Corinthian Colleges and ITT Technical Institute, two scam for-profit colleges, went out of business and ended up leaving thousands, maybe tens of thousands of students just basically screwed. No degree, no job, and massive amounts of student debt. So President Obama and the Secretary of Education put together this plan. It's called the Borrower Defense Rule, that said that if somebody got ripped off by one of these for-profit colleges, they didn't have to pay back the debt. If it was student debt that was issued by the federal government, we would just eat it as a country. They were the victims of fraud. Well, it turns out Betsy DeVos had other ideas. She came into office, of course, just months afterwards, as Donald Trump was sworn into office, and she's been fighting it all the way. You can check the whole thing out over at ThomHartmann.com and our new video for supporters of our program. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Paul, you are the the winner today of a 3-pack of Face Tech masks. One of our new advertisers, Face TEK, is the company. Face Tech masks are antimicrobial and antifungal. You can go to facetekmask.com for more information. And stay on the line when we get done here, Paul, so that you can give Joyce your name and address to get them. So what's on your mind, Paul?
Well, happy day, and I will breathe easier for that. Thank you, Tom.
You will, actually. They're really nice masks. Anyhow, what's up?
Well, what struck me about thinking about this Georgia incident and so many things, and maybe this has been brought up, but in terms of police reform, how often the police are called or respond to situations that have no legal actionable cause. This incident in Georgia, the police had no actionable cause. It's not illegal to be drunk as a skunk in your car on private property. They had no reason.
You're right.
They had no reason to give him a breath test. Nothing could have come of it. He could blow a 0.45. He could be practically dead, and there was nothing they could do with his license. He could refuse to take the breath test, and there's nothing they could do about his license. He's on private property. And when the one officer started to arrest him, that's a false arrest. Arrest him for what?
But isn't the argument that this is private property, doesn't that argument go out the window when the owner of that private property is the person who asserts the complaint? I mean, these police were responding to a phone call they got from a person at Wendy's. Now, granted, tragically, that phone call went to the police instead of to somebody who could deal with somebody who was drunk, get him to a hotel, whatever. This should not be dealt with like a crime. But once somebody's on somebody else's private property, doesn't it, at least in the margins, become a crime, Paul?
No, it's not a crime. They can say the owner of this property would like you to move on, no loitering. We think you're impaired. You better not try to move on in your car, because if you do, we're going to pull you over and probably arrest you for drunk driving. So they can say, right, be on your way. They can say, please be on your way. But if you try to drive that car, we're going to arrest you. And
yeah. I'm only trying to understand this. I'm not trying to justify what the police did. But my understanding is that if somebody comes onto my property and, is acting in a way that is threatening or destructive or just passes out my front lawn, I can call the police and say this person is on my front lawn.
Right, and that's a little different than a Wendy's when you're inviting people to come on for business, and he's there. Okay, so I take your first part of your question. Yeah, they're asking him. He's essentially loitering, and they're asking him to move on. Well, they didn't actually ask him. They told the police to ask him. So the police came onto the property and said, "We'd like you to move on." But
actually, they did ask him. The woman who called the police in her police call said, "I went out, I woke him up, I asked him to move the car, and he just fell back asleep." But we're splitting hairs here, Paul. I agree with your larger principle, which is that police should only be called in the event a crime is happening or has happened, not for things that aren't crimes. I'm sorry, I don't remember the city. In fact, it might have been more than one. But I saw a report this morning on the news on TV that at least one city has said that their police departments, starting now, will no longer respond to anything except crimes specifically involving felonies or real crimes. What do you think?
Well, let me give you a contrast. This exact same thing happened to my sister about 3 years ago. She and her girlfriends were at a winery wine tasting. I have no idea how much they had to drink or whether they were intoxicated, but they came out of the winery, got into the car, and when my sister pulled out, was backing out, she turned too sharp and scraped the front fender on one of those posts that are about 4 feet high. They're painted yellow, and they're in front of the entrance. And you know what I'm talking about? They're filled with concrete. She scraped the car on that, and people who were walking in said, "Hey, looks like you've had too much to drink." And so her girlfriend said, "You know what? Maybe we better just." They pulled over on the same parking lot. They did not leave and go out on the road. They said, "Let's just go over into the restaurant because those people are going to call the cops, and you're going to get a ticket." So they pulled the car over and pulled into another space in the parking lot and went into the restaurant. A half an hour later, the police walked into the restaurant and said, "Who's the owner of the black SUV with the crunch fender?" And she said, that's mine. He goes, excuse me, ma'am, I need you to take a breath test. And she says, why? She goes, I believe you're intoxicated. She said, so? He said, yeah, but your car is. She said, so? This is private property. She said, you have no idea when that crunch happened or anything. I haven't left. I'm not on the road. I'm in private property, and I don't have to take a breath test. So there's nothing you can do because I'm not in my car and I'm not on the road. And this 35-year-old cop says, well, you got me. So that's the difference between a white woman who's well-dressed and 60 years old and a 35-year-old cop and a black man who's drunk in his car at Wendy's.
Yeah. Fascinating example. Paul, thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on winning your mask. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
So we have a new video up for people who are supporters of the Thom Hartmann Program. Specifically, it's over at thomhartmann.com, talking about language, how we use language. Language matters tremendously. And we have chosen as a society, as a culture, as media, as political leadership, et cetera, not to refer to people like Steve Mnuchin, who threw thousands of people out of their homes illegally during the banking crisis, as looters. Not to refer to Rex Tillerson, whose oil company has ravaged much of the third world, literally destroying people's lives, killing people, poisoning people. We don't refer to them as looters. We don't refer to the police who go into neighborhoods and kill people, minorities, particularly African Americans. We don't refer to them as looters, stealing their lives. But when black people rise up and say, no, enough, we call them looters. There's something wrong with this. Check it out. It's at thomhartmann.com. Well, it's Tuesday for the Free Speech TV fundraiser, and I want to introduce you to Blue. Ooh, Blue. This is my dog, Blue, and Louise's dog, Blue. Blue has one brown eye and one blue eye, and thus Blue. And he's a miniature border collie, or no, Australian Shepherd, I guess. And, oh, yeah, what a good dog. And Blue would like you to contribute to Free Speech TV today. Can you say, please? Please, Blue, help out? Okay, you can go back to the, there you go. So, 87, oh, now Blue wants some attention. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. And, you know, if you'd like to say hello to Blue or send your regards, give Free Speech TV a call right now. Free Speech TV, this is the last week of the fund drive. It really is important. We really are behind. We have not hit our goals. We barely made our goals actually last week on the days when we had matches, and we've gotten nowhere close to that the rest of the time. So I'm desperate here. I'm showing animals on TV. It's like, please help out Free Speech TV. Desperate is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. This is serious stuff. We need to keep this network going. We need to keep this network on the air, and you are the glue that holds it together. You are what helps Free Speech TV be Free Speech TV. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV has some premiums for you with a $20 gift. You have your choice between the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet with or there's a brand new all-inclusive LGBTQ plus pride sticker which is, for today, a really great, today is the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing, actually yesterday was the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing gay and trans rights. And basically the whole spectrum of rights there encompassed by LGBTQ plus, excuse me. And what a marvelous day, what a great thing for all of us. And as society becomes richer and has more texture and it's just a good thing. With a $50 gift, there's the Just Effing Vote tote bag, and there is the Free Speech TV webcam cover with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, there's the Free Speech TV face masks, 2 of them. With a $120 gift, there's a whole bunch of options with a $120 gift. The social distancing kit, where you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks and the hand sanitizer. The Just Effing Vote t-shirt. These are all $120 gifts. The Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, if you want to become a real evangelist. The Hidden History of the War on Voting, my book, the current one that's out right now, autographed by the author. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which is my next book, which won't be out for another month or 2. But when it does come out, you'll be one of the very first to get it with an autographed by the author copy. The Hidden History of Monopolies and, how big business destroyed the American dream, I believe is the subtitle. And then there are 4 books on race that, given this moment in time, well, not just this moment. I mean, obviously it's in the front of the news, but this period, this larger period, my lifetime, your lifetime that we're living through, where we have seen so much positive motion, and yet at the same time things are so terrible. They're still so terrible. These books are really, really, any one of these with a $120 gift. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Dear White America by Tim Wise, and Uprooting Racism by Paul Kibble. With a $240 gift, there's the Free Speech TV meet and greet. With a $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann University box, all kinds of goodies. And with the $1,000 gift, come to Portland. But the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need your help right now. We need your help in a big and serious way. So please call now, 877-378-8669. So please, I mean, this is, of all the causes out there, and there's some great ones, this one encompasses so many of them, whether it's racial equality or gender identity equality, or whether it's, the environment, political realities, voting. I mean, pick your issue. Free Speech TV is all over it. And to a large extent, hopefully at this program, we are too. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And Blue thanks you, and I thank you. So please call now, right? Help Free Speech TV be successful. Help Free Speech TV stay on the air. Help this program, continue doing the work that we're doing. We all need your help, and we need it right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call now.
The book, The Inner Level by Wilkinson and Pickett.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is Caroline Henderson, the senior climate campaigner with Greenpeace US, greenpeace.org/USA, and her Twitter handle is CAROHEND @CaroHend. And Caroline, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, great. On June 4th of this year, just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump signed this executive order that specifically said that basically every federal agency could ignore environmental rules if that's what it took to restart the economy. You're pointing out that this has nothing to do with COVID-19 or the current economic crisis, that this long predates that, and that this is basically another part of his racist, pro-extractive industry and carbon industry agenda. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And thanks for having me. So as you mentioned earlier this month, on June 4th, Donald Trump took two actions to weaken environmental regulations and public health protections. And in doing so, that was really an effort to further his anti-environment racist agenda that's been ongoing since he took office. So those two actions that he took, the first of them was an executive order instructing his administration to use their, quote, emergency authorities to bypass environmental regulations and speed up fossil fuel projects like mines and pipelines. And this order basically allows the White House officials to go around bedrock environmental laws like the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act, and essentially undercuts public participation in decisions affecting communities near infrastructure projects. And then the second of those actions was a decision from President Trump's Environmental Protection Agency to propose a new rule that will allow the Trump administration to downplay the economic benefit of public health protections, essentially in order to write weaker rules. So what this means, we need to recognize these two decisions and Trump's broader efforts to undermine environmental protections for what they are, and that is that Trump's anti-environment agenda is a racist agenda. And we can see that everywhere from... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you to expand on that. I think a lot of people don't immediately conflate anti-environmentalism with racism or anti-environmental policies. They don't realize how heavily those policies fall on the backs of black and brown people and indigenous people.
Right. Yeah, so we can see evidence of this in a few places. First off, looking at air pollution. So let's just take, for example, Trump's decision in April of this year during a global pandemic to weaken regulations on particulate matter pollution, despite the fact that communities who are continuously exposed to this type of pollution are more likely to have fatal outcomes from COVID-19. And this decision deepens environmental racism, given the fact that people living near coal and oil power plants and thus exposed to this pollution are disproportionately Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And that is just one of more than 100 environmental rules that President Trump has attempted to weaken or repeal. And many of those will have a disproportionate impact on Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities and further jeopardize public health during a pandemic. It is worth noting here that most of these efforts have been stalled by Congress or are in the courts, but they still make Trump's malicious intent quite clear. The other area to look at is Trump's attempts to expand fossil fuel infrastructure while ignoring the public health impacts, the need for community input, or respect for Indigenous sovereignty. So within days of taking office, Trump attempted to fast-track the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines via executive order. And this decision on June 4th, similarly, instead of protecting public health, is essentially a rollback to benefit the oil and gas industry that has for decades been wrecking our climate and treating working class communities of color as sacrifice zones.
So, in a way, I suppose this shouldn't surprise anybody. The Republican Party, since the Reagan Revolution, has essentially been, up for sale to the highest bidder, and among the wealthiest corporations in the world have been, prior to 2000, it was tobacco and oil. Now it's oil and, mining and God only knows what all. And yet, it's kind of shocking that this is happening. We're talking with Carolyn Henderson, the senior climate campaigner with Greenpeace here in the U.S., greenpeace.org/USA. Caroline, what should we do about this? What can individual Americans do about this?
Yeah, right now, Greenpeace, among others, are urging leaders in Congress to step in and stop Donald Trump's ongoing attempts to put lives at stake so that polluters can profit. And this is really part of a broader resistance that we're mounting to Trump's ongoing racist, anti-environment agenda. And that starts with calling it for what it is. So if folks want to learn more, they can go to, as you said, greenpeace.org to take action and get involved with that resistance.
Yeah, it's remarkable stuff. I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing that they're able to get away with this and that there isn't a stronger pushback. Carolyn Henderson. Carolyn, thank you so much for dropping by today.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you. You too. Great having you with us. Remarkable. Wynn in Solon, Maine. Hey, Wynn, what's up? Solon.
There you go again. Solon, Maine, Tom.
Got it. Hey, Wayne, what's up?
Yeah. Okay. Thursday, a fellow named Nick called in and talked with you, and you were talking about the racial aspects of policing and stuff, and you kind of cut him off and stuff. But I really kind of wanted to hear what he had to say, because to me, and I would like your further take on this, but to me, the racial aspects in policing is just a small section of the problem. I think the racism is an excuse for law enforcement to misbehave that they use either consciously or subconsciously. But to me, the bigger problem, the elephant in the room, is actually policing itself. I'm a white boy, and if I have a few seconds here to tell you about this, I'm a white boy in a very white state. Maine is about 95%, probably more, whiter. And I was picked up on a warrant that was false. It was a false warrant. It was a mistake. Mm-hmm. And I was taken to jail. And here I am, a white guy. White officers, true, they had shaved heads, skinhead type guys. But I had never been arrested before. And I'm a very educated person. I don't think I was presenting myself to them as an idiot in any way.
You got about 25 seconds here, Wynn.
Oh, okay. But the simple short of it is, I was assaulted by 4 to 5 officers. They hit me in a flash. It took me and threw me down against a concrete floor and a concrete wall. I ended up 3 weeks later in a hospital with infections in my bloodstream and in my face and head because of cracked teeth, because how they slammed me down. So
I get your point, Wynn, and I think, and I don't disagree that in many cases what's happening is you've got guys who are just itching to beat the crap out of somebody, and what they've found is that socially it's more acceptable to do that to people of color than to white people by and large. But they'll do it to white people lacking somebody who's black or brown. Wynn, thank you for the call. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, talk media for the rest of us. And welcome back. Jonathan in Portland, Oregon. Hey, John, what's up? Jonathan, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I'd like people to remember the number 2 when you're thinking of police officers, and here's why. If you want to become a police officer, whether it's in Portland or New York City, the requirements are very simple. You need to have a high school diploma or GED with a 2.0 average. 2.0 is barely a passing C. Now, to give people an understanding of what that means, there's over 1,500 colleges and universities in the United States. And if you were to apply to those colleges or universities, exactly 7 would accept you. That's bad. And yet, if a starting salary for a police officer in Portland is $66,000 a year, that's more than a biological scientist would make. Now, in the United States, by the time you're 18 years old, the chances are anywhere between 16 and 27% of the U.S. population has already been arrested. That's not just black people, it's both, mostly black people. And this is why the police are so violent. And what's happening as a result of this violence to black people, and particularly to young black men, 14, 15-year-old men, being very heavily affected, they have a 3.5% less likely to graduate high school, 2.5% less likely to go to college, and a 15% chance of having some type of psychological disturbance or depression. And this is what's happening to the country. It's lack of education. And it's the citizens of this country that need to demand that police all around the country be educated. Raise the standard to a college degree. If you become a Portland police officer, they give you an incentive for a college degree. You know what it is? 2%. Citizens need to value education. And this is why we're beating our heads against the wall, because we're talking to a wall. We're trying to come up with solutions. These people do not understand reason and logic. They don't understand. They are recruited specifically to be the way they are, and we are getting the exact results that we're supposed to get, and that's the reality.
Yeah, they understand the use of force. Jonathan, you know the numbers you've been tossing out: $66,000 a year is starting pay for police here in Portland. Very specific information. You sound like you're well informed on this. Have you been working on this issue, or did you just read a really good newspaper article? Or I ask because if you are involved with this, I'd like to know about organizations in Portland that are working to change our policing.
Well, first of all, I mean, I have a background in research but I've always been interested in education. I'm an educator. And I've always been disturbed by the fact that, in a very practical way, we're not getting good value for our money. I don't think that having someone with barely a high school diploma, you should pay $66,000 a year. But, you can't appeal to people. I mean, so let's step back from policing for a moment and just talk about education, because people have conflated education with vocational schools, right? You go to college to get a job. You don't go to college to get a job. You go to college to learn to be a human being. And what we need in the society are better human beings. That's what we really need. But yes, the best article, you want to read a recent article from some Harvard researcher. It's called "Killings by American Police." It's in The Economist, and that'll explain a lot of it.
I'll look it up. And Jonathan, you just did a great description of the goal of a liberal education, and so much of that has been left behind by this whole movement toward STEM education, basically. Jonathan, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. Hey, Donald Trump has said some pretty outrageous and in many cases just screamingly racist things over the years, and very, very much trafficked in racist tropes, saying things like, all Republicans must remember what they're witnessing here, a lynching, speaking about people attacking him for the things he's said. Or, I'm the least racist person you've ever encountered. I don't have a racist bone in my body, which is something that racists always say. What has happened to the respect for authority, the fear of retribution? Bring back the death penalty and bring back our police, says Donald Trump. Why do we need more Haitians? Why are we having people from all these asshole countries come here? We should have more people from places like Norway, says Donald Trump. Anyhow, the whole list of them is posted as a video over at thomhartmann.com for people who are supporters of our program.
Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Donald Trump's racist anti-environment agenda. It's pretty mind-boggling. More of the interesting news of the day here. The U.S. attorney in Southern California or in Northern California, wherever it is, Oakland and Santa Cruz, has announced that the gunman who killed 2 law enforcement officers in California, this was being blamed on Antifa terrorists, was associated with the right-wing Boogaloo movement. A patch wearing the group's symbol was found in the van used by the shooter in the Oakland and Santa Cruz killings. According to the FBI, the gunman, an Air Force sergeant, and an accomplice went to Oakland to take advantage, in quotes, of BLM Black Lives Matter protests at the courthouse and opened fire on the officers. They were not associated with any of the protests. The gun used was an AR-15 style rifle. Keep in mind that the goal of these white terrorists is to start what they refer to as a race war. They think that, and I believe we saw this in St. Louis as well, where these white terrorists show up with guns and shoot at the police, causing the police to react or overreact to the black protesters, and in the hopes that this is going to start white people and black people shooting at each other. This is the narrative. This was what Tim McVeigh was acting out back in the day. I think it was 1989 was the year that he blew up Oklahoma City. My memory might be faulty on that, but back in the day, he had read this white guy, Tim McVeigh. He had read the Turner Diaries, this novel about how a noble white man blows up a federal building. The president of the United States clamps down, saying, okay, no more weapons for white guys, and starts taking away guns. The white guys with all the guns and the bombs, they rise up, they destroy the government, they kill the black people and the Jews and the Hispanics. I don't recall if they killed gays or not. It's been 30, 20 years since I read the book. It's a really poorly written novel, by the way. It's almost as badly written as Ayn Rand's stuff. And then in the very end, the white guys are standing here triumphant, we conquered, right? And starting a new America based on the white Anglo-Saxon principles that it was designed. I mean, this is the story, right, of the Turner Diaries. This is a novel which is the Bible, essentially, of this movement. And when Tim McVeigh blew up that building, the McMurrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, when he blew that building up, he believed that Bill Clinton, who was the president at the time, maybe it wasn't 89, well, whoever the president was, he believed it was 95. Thank you, Sean. Okay, that now makes sense. He believed, because I knew he thought Bill Clinton was going to do it. It was 1995. He believed that Bill Clinton was going to come down on gun owners. Bill Clinton was going to overreact. Now, this was I believe, the 2-year anniversary of the Waco killings. Janet Reno took a lot of heat for that. That was during the Clinton administration also. And a year after Ruby Ridge, more or less. And so there were, kind of timelines for right-wing, white, racist crackpots in there. But this is what he expected. He expected that America was going to erupt in racial violence, that it was going to be far worse than what we saw after, for example, the killing of Dr. King, or the riots that erupted after Rodney King was brutally beaten on television by police. And he was wrong. But the mythology lives on. And over and over and over again, we are seeing, Dylan Roof believed this. He didn't just walk into his church and murder nine African Americans purely out of the hate of his heart. He thought he was helping start a movement. These guys, and by the way, unlike, so many of these other recent cases, frankly, in particular, most recently, Rayshard Brooks, unlike that situation, the police, when they arrested Dylan Roof, took him to Burger King for lunch on the way to jail. But in any case, he thought he was going to, he thought he was participating in a movement too. These guys, there is this movement. And when the FBI identified this in 2008, and they published their report in January or February 2009, just a few weeks after Obama was inaugurated as president, there was so much upset on the right, on the right-wing hate radio, exploded. Oh my God, the FBI is trying to demonize white people? And Fox News, they were all excited about this, all flipped out. And so Obama pulled the report. Now, there had been a similar report about left-wing violence just a year earlier. Nobody had a problem with that, but this was right-wing violence. Oh my God, you can't discuss right-wing terrorism in the United States? No way. So here we are. I'll pick up your phone calls after the break. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Exposing the con in conservative. Stick around. We're reading today. Well, it's Tuesday for the Free Speech TV fundraiser, and I want to introduce you to Blue. Blue. This is my dog Blue, and Louise's dog Blue. Blue has one brown eye and one blue eye, and thus Blue. And he's a miniature border collie, Australian Shepherd, I guess. And, oh yeah, what a good dog. And Blue would like you to contribute to Free Speech TV today. Can you say, please? Please, Blue, help out? Okay, you can go back to there you go. So, now Blue wants some attention. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. And, if you'd like to say hello to Blue or send your regards, give Free Speech TV a call right now. Free Speech TV, this is the last week of the fund drive. It really is important. We really are behind. We have not hit our goals. We barely made our goals actually last week on the days when we had matches, and we've gotten nowhere close to that the rest of the time. So I'm desperate here. I'm showing animals on TV. It's like, please help out Free Speech TV. Desperate is the wrong word, but you understand what I'm saying. This is serious stuff. We need to keep this network going. We need to keep this network on the air, and you are the glue that holds it together. You are what helps Free Speech TV be Free Speech TV. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV has some premiums for you with a $20 gift. You have your choice between the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet with or there's a brand new all-inclusive LGBTQ plus pride sticker, which is, for today, a really great, today is the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing, actually yesterday was the day that the Supreme Court announced that they're recognizing gay and trans rights. And basically the whole spectrum of rights there encompassed by LGBTQ plus, excuse me. And what a marvelous day! What a great thing! What a great thing for all of us. And as society becomes richer and has more texture and it's just a good thing. With a $50 gift, there's the Just Effing Vote tote bag. And there is the Free Speech TV webcam cover with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Free Speech TV mug. With a $100 gift, there's the Free Speech TV face masks, 2 of them. With a $120 gift, there's a whole bunch of options with a $120 gift. The social distancing kit, where you get 2 Free Speech TV face masks and the hand sanitizer. The Just Effing Vote t-shirt. These are all $120 gifts. the Ask Me About Free Speech TV t-shirt, if you want to become a real evangelist. The Hidden History of the War on Voting, my book, the current one that's out right now, autographed by the author. The Hidden History of Monopolies, which is my next book, which won't be out for another month or two. But when it does come out, you'll be one of the very first to get it with an autographed by the author copy. The Hidden History of Monopolies and, how big business destroyed the American dream, I believe is the subtitle. And then there are 4 books on race that, given this moment in time, well, not just this moment. I mean, obviously it's in the front of the news, but this period, this larger period, my lifetime, your lifetime that we're living through, where we have seen so much positive motion, and yet at the same time things are so terrible. They're still so terrible. These books are really, really, any one of these with a $120 gift. The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Dear White America by Tim Wise, and Uprooting Racism by Paul Kibble. With a $240 gift, there's the Free Speech TV meet and greet with a $360 gift. There's the Thom Hartmann University box, all kinds of goodies. And with the $1,000 gift, come to Portland. But the bottom line is Free Speech TV needs your help. We need your help right now. We need your help in a big and serious way. So please call now, 877-378-8669. So please, I mean, this is, of all the causes out there, and there's some great ones, this one encompasses so many of them, whether it's racial equality or gender identity equality, or whether it's, the environment, political realities, voting. I mean, pick your issue. Free Speech TV is all over it. And to a large extent, hopefully at this program, we are too. So please call now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. And Blue thanks you, and I thank you. So please call now, right? Help Free Speech TV be successful. Help Free Speech TV stay on the air. Help this program, continue doing the work that we're doing. We all need your help, and we need it right now. 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. Please call now. Coming up on the Science Revolution, biodiversity is dying as Trump opens 5,000 square miles of the ocean to the free market. Dr. Lauren Waller joins us to discuss how and why native plants can sequester carbon better and longer. Plus, Jim Adams from the Alaska National Parks Conservation Association is here on why Trump is allowing hunters to kill bear cubs in their dens. Are big game hunters like Don Jr. gleefully heading to Alaska to kill baby animals again? And cultural economist Dr. Jacobo Williams talks about how studies show black deaths at the hands of law enforcement are linked to historical lynchings. Tune into the Science Revolution wherever you find great podcasts. Hey, Donald Trump has said some pretty outrageous and in many cases just screamingly racist things over the years, and very, very much trafficked in racist tropes, saying things like, all Republicans must remember what they're witnessing here, a lynching, speaking about people attacking him for the things he's said. Or, I'm the least racist person you've ever encountered. I don't have a racist bone in my body, which is something that racists always say. What has happened to the respect for authority, the fear of retribution? Bring back the death penalty and bring back our police, says Donald Trump. Why do we need more Haitians? Why are we having people from all these asshole countries come here? We should have more people from places like Norway, says Donald Trump. Anyhow, the whole list of them is posted as a video over at thomhartmann.com for people who are supporters of our program. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Connie in Reno, Nevada. Connie, you are the winner today of our 3-pack of Face Tech masks. They are antimicrobial and antifungal. Go to facetekmask.com for more information and stay on the line after we get done talking so that Joyce can get your name and address. So what's up, Connie?
Hey, Tom, I'm just concerned that with all the conversation about improving our police departments, that it always goes to high education, to college degrees. And to me, it just seems like what we're missing is the human aspect of it. What we need are people to have empathy, conflict resolution skills, things that are difficult to teach in the classroom. And we've never had a better educated population than we have today. And yet it hasn't solved all the problems because we keep missing people. And there's a lot of people out there that would make great police officers, but maybe they have a blemish on their record from when they were young. And that seems to you cannot be a police officer with anything on your record. So what we're left with are people, we would end up with all college-educated people that have never been in a scuffle, who don't understand that world. And it's a difficult world, and I think we're missing a really important point here. I grew up in a small town with officers who had been in trouble before they became police officers. And, they just knew everybody. They knew how to treat people. And I think that's the part that we're missing in this whole thing. I don't have a college degree, and I've always been looked down on in my jobs because of it. And I often walk away scratching my head thinking how they don't seem that bright sometimes. Just going to school, you need people with that empathy and, like I say, conflict resolution ability.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it.
And a good one. There's this concept called emotional intelligence, the EQ quotient.
Yes.
It was a big fad back in the 80s and 90s. I'm forgetting the name of the author who came up with it, but there are some people who are very, very smart. They've got very high IQs. They've got lousy emotional intelligence, low EQs. And there are people who have, extraordinary emotional intelligence. They have empathy, they have understanding, they have insight, but they may not be able to do, quadratic equations. They may not have even the propensity, even the desire to have a college education, but they really should be in the police, or in however we reinvent them. I think that's such an important point, Connie, and thank you for making it and stopping this conversation. Let's simplify all this down to we need more education, we need more money, whatever it may be. We've tried all those things, I think some of the nastiest people on earth have had college educations. So, Connie, well said. Thank you very much. I'm going to put you on hold here so Joyce can get your information and send you your face masks. Leslie in Central Square, New York. Hey, Leslie, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Good. What's up?
About George Floyd's brother, who said, "What we can do is vote," and he is exactly right. And nobody in the media
I was just saying his name, Thelonious Floyd. Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody in the media will bring up how to fix this. He brings it up. You got to go after the officials in your city, and they got to do what you want from the bottom up. Okay? Nobody tells them that. No media tells them that at all. How to fix this? Nobody does.
Yeah, no, these are problems that were created in large part by our political system, and they will ultimately probably be solved by our political system. But right now, the political system is feeling all that pressure, which frankly, I think is a good thing. Leslie, thank you. Well said. Richard in Chicago. Hey, Richard, what's up?
Oh, hi. I guess I don't have a solution to the problem, but here's a little part of it, perhaps. I have always been appalled at the money that it costs, like Chicago, where I live, for the police misconduct. And if it came out of their budget, the incentive would be, and maybe even the dues of the unions. I hate to bust unions, but they're going to act that way. But I mean, that's what Republicans said. Fiscal responsibility, blah blah blah. Well, there's no accountability, and if it came out of their budget, somehow.
I agree. If the cops knew that if they get sued for beating somebody up and that person gets $1 million judgment, that $1 million is going to mean that 5 cops get laid off, or the department doesn't get another car, or or it's going to come out of the union and their union dues are going to go up 10%. They'd probably be a little less likely to beat people up. I get it. You know, which is not to say that we don't need to do the cultural stuff and the hiring stuff and all that, all the other things that have been discussed. But yeah, I agree with you. This is a point I brought up with Senator Merkley, I think it was, a week or so ago. We were talking about reforming police, and I said, words to the effect of, why can't, we've got two groups in this country, professional groups, who hold your life in their hands, who literally have the ability to kill you and suffer no legal consequence. And in fact, they could even kill you maliciously and probably more easily get away with it than anybody else. And that's doctors and nurses on the one hand, and the other is medical professionals, and cops on the other hand. And for doctors and nurses, because they have that awesome ability, that extraordinary power to, literally of life or death, we require them to be responsible for their actions. They can be held liable in a court of law, and there is an insurance policy that they have to buy to protect themselves. It's called liability insurance. And why don't cops have to carry liability insurance? Because liability insurance is one of the principal ways that we weed back bad doctors out of the system. Right? A doctor may go from state to state and not be recognized. When I lived in Vermont, there was a doctor, an ophthalmologist who came into our town in Montpelier, who it turned out had a terrible record and had done really harm to people. Couldn't get insurance. The insurance company, the malpractice insurance companies, even if the local folks don't know who you are, the insurance companies do. And frankly, I think that having police have to have malpractice insurance would do it. I really think it would. Or it's not going to be some panacea. I don't mean to say it like that, but this is another one of those small pieces of a very large problem that needs to be addressed. Brian at Fort Collins, Colorado. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. This discussion of police tactics and what we can do to reform the police. I recently read a book. I'll confess that it's authored by my son, who's a professor at Pepperdine University, cool. A graduate from PhD from University of California, Berkeley. But the book is called We Built Reality: How Social Science Infiltrated Culture, Politics, and Power. And particularly apropos of the discussion about police tactics is what he writes in Chapter 5, and he basically talks about how how the police were their theories went from the social science of rehabilitative model to the current paradigm of zero tolerance and law and order. And
this came out of the whole broken windows thing, right? From 15, 20 years ago, the stuff that Giuliani picked up on?
Exactly. And the chapter, he wrote this book, obviously, before George Floyd was murdered. But he did have the example of Eric Garner being murdered by the police for selling loose cigarettes. And, he ties that to the broken windows police can't tolerate even the smallest of transgressions because that will put us on the path.
Right. Right. And that theory has since been largely discredited. I mean, there are some peripheral dimensions to it that seem to make sense. But I'll check it out. The book is We Built Reality. I'll check it out, Brian. Thanks, and tip of the hat to your son. We'll be right back.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 1:45, the top of the hour. It's taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, right here. Tell your friends about it. We'll be back. And welcome back. Les in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Les, what's up?
Hey, not much. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
I've called a couple times before and talked about the construct of whiteness and what that means to how we are as a country right now and breaking down that construct. Well, I have two terms that I would like to introduce to the crowd. Probably some of you all are familiar with it. But the first term is drapetomania, DRAPETOMANIA. And that was the mental illness developed by Samuel A. Cartwright to prescribe to enslaved Africans who were escaping slavery. And there was a treatment for that. It was on the medical journals until 1914. And another term that is from the same doctor, it is called dysesthesia aesthetica. It is DYSAESTHEAETHIOPICA. That was a it was proven to be pseudoscience, but scientifically it was believed that enslaved Africans had an insensitivity in their skin. And they had to break that insensitivity in their skin by oiling the skin and flogging the skin until the enslaved person would understand to do work or not be lazy. Well, it was proven to be pseudoscience in in between 1840 something and 1914, and the proof was that from the flogging or the whipping, the scar tissue was creating the insensitivity in the skin, and these were sciences that were based on the construct of whiteness that get us where we are today. And we can talk about all of the things that are going on today, and all of the slave revolts and things like that. But we need to get closer to the science that kept slavery as it was, and how those sciences are still, if a black man is walking down the street with a bag of Skittles, a white person has the power to disrupt their freedom and attack them, kill them, and not have repercussions for that. That science is based back to slavery. And we need to break down whiteness. We are, folks need to be Irish, Italian. They were included to be white because of the construct of whiteness, which was not accepted in Europe. It started here, and we need to get into that. And folks need to stop being white so we can have a much deeper conversation about our cultures.
Have you read the book, Les, when the Irish became white?
No, I haven't read that book.
Yeah. Okay. It's been quite a few years, so I don't want to be quoting from it when I may remember it imperfectly, but my recollection is that, at least one piece of that was that Irish immigrants, once they were able to successfully get rid of their accents, could easily blend into the, quote, white population because of the color of their skin, whereas a black person couldn't do that. Interesting points. Thank you. I wrote those words down. I'll look them up. Who was the doctor, or the so-called doctor?
That's Samuel A. Cartwright. That's Cartwright with a W, right.
Thank you. I got it.
All right.
Thank you, Les. Good talking to you. Hey, Thom Hartmann here. I have a new book out. It's called The Hidden History of Monopolies, How Big Business Destroyed the American Dream, and Ralph Nader wrote the foreword. It's available for pre-order wherever you find fine books. Hey, we have a new video over at thomhartmann.com for people who are supporters of our program. It is the 12 steps. Common Cause actually put these together, but I boiled them down into a nice little rant on a YouTube video that you can share with friends and neighbors and acquaintances who might be wondering, how did this coronavirus thing get so bad? Why is it that the United States has a third of the deaths in the world? Why do we have over 100,000 dead people, and South Korea has 200, and Taiwan has like 70, and Australia has fewer than 100, and has pretty much squashed the virus? Why is it that only 7 people died in New Zealand? Why are so many other countries doing so well and we're not? Well, there's an answer to that question, and I lay it out in this little video. It's over at thomhartmann.com. And you can grab it there and share it with your friends. And I'll give you a clue. Almost all of it has to do with things that orange guy in the White House either did or failed to do, but it's a great list. You can check it out at thomhartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And let's see here. Patrick in Long Island. Hey, Patrick, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing? I was going to talk about Reaganism and what have you, but I see time is running out, so I'm just going to tell you a quick anecdote. There was a march in my town last week, and it consisted of about a couple hundred people. It was, a good mix of ages and, nationalities and races and what have you. So it was good to see that, and everybody had their signs, and they peacefully did their march, extremely peacefully. And at one point, they passed the police chief, and they said to him, "Would you like to take a knee in solidarity?" His response was, "I only kneel before God." So I just put that towards, I'm not happy with that. You're the chief of police, and you're setting the tone. And it goes back to training and the tone and what's allowed and all the what is the saying. Yeah, and all what is the saying about if a few good people don't speak up or something like that? There's no encouragement to be the knight in shining armor, and it's the culture. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Yeah, you're welcome, Patrick. Yeah, it was Sir Edmund Burke back in the late 1700s. Thomas Paine stopped at his house for 2 weeks on his way to the French Revolution, where Paine got arrested by Maximilien Robespierre. But Paine stopped there, and they got in this huge fight. Because Sir Edmund Burke was, one of the world's most famous conservatives at the time. He famously wrote, "Does me no harm if a man engaged in his callow a profession as candle maker, tallow maker, or hairdresser is allowed to make a living, but if he is allowed to vote, it does society considerable violence." And Paine got so pissed off that he wrote an entire book called The Rights of Man as a rebuttal to Edmund Burke. But in any case, your quote was from Sir Edmund Burke. He was the one who said, "All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." And, I'm paraphrasing from memory, but I think it's pretty close. And that's where we're at. Susan in Saratoga Springs, New York. Hey, Susan, what's up? No Susan. Okay, I thought it might have just been delay on my phone lines, but apparently not. Let's try Christy in Sun City, West Arizona. Hey, Christy, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. I followed you for a lot of years from Alaska, New Mexico, and now our last stand in Arizona. First of all, I am from a union family, father, husband, son, 3 different unions. I support unions. My question is how and why cops who are convicted of a felony or fired for violence get to retire with full benefits and pension. And I asked this question today specifically regarding a Glendale, Arizona cop who 3 years ago pulled a passenger from a parked car with his family and probably 10-year-old son hysterically looking on, and they had him in cuffs. They tased him 11 times, and then they pulled his shorts down and tased him in the genitals. I kid you not, it's on video online. Today, 3 years down the road, this cop is voluntarily, quote unquote, quitting the Glendale police force, supposedly never to be a cop again, but with full pension and bennies. Not being able to get rid of a bad cop, which includes the stand by and watch complicit cops, weakens union. Not being able to impose monetary consequences is not enough of a deterrent for these kinds of cops. And aren't the taxpayers paying the monetary awards, which I agree with, but I think the cops ought to bear that burden myself.
I agree, Christy, and to the best of my knowledge, there is no other union in the United States that routinely goes to battle for union members who flagrantly break the law and hurt people. It's just, it only happens with police unions, and there's something really sick and twisted about that. Christy, thank you for the call. Excellent point. Joan in Rochester, Minnesota. Hey, Joan, what's up?
Well, I'm going back to the virus, and I wondered why Trump is having rallies with his voters, giving them the opportunity to get the virus, have something happen.
I think it's because he's mentally ill.
Yeah, well, but he's going to lose his voters if they get the virus, and what he's doing is defeating his own purpose of impressing people, and what's going to happen is that if he does lose, he's going to say, well, the virus was the cause of the loss of my election. But doesn't he have
He's already saying that.
a brain? Doesn't he have a brain to understand that he's hurting himself by having those people meet in big quantities and exposing themselves?
You know, if 15 or 20,000 people show up and go back out into the community and infect another 15 or 20,000 people, 40, 50,000 voters in Oklahoma is probably not going to make a difference for Donald Trump. He's still going to carry Oklahoma. So I don't think he cares, frankly, Joan. That's why I said it's because he's mentally ill.
Yep.
There you go. Too. Yep. Joan, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. January 20th can't come soon enough, I'm telling you. Or November 3rd, for that matter. Flush the whatever. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In fact, I believe Mark Pocan is going to start off the show with taking your calls for the hour in the National Town Hall meeting. And in the meantime, tell your friends about Progressive Media and get active in your democracy. It requires you. Tag your it. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself and people around you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.